In ancient times, the blood of the imperial family of the Snow Country was filled with the spirit of water. Therefore, when they are sad, the sky becomes cloudy and it begins to rain. But our heroine noted that on such a sad day, there was not a single cloud in the sky. One of the men present noted that the prince must say goodbye to his mother for the last time. The girl thought to herself that this woman was her brother's mother. It must be very difficult for him to restrain his emotions, so much so that he even managed to deceive the weather. The young man has never been very emotional, but he says goodbye forever to his loved one. But still, the young man could not hide his sadness, and suddenly heavy rain began. Princess Sheena suddenly became ill, and everyone around her was afraid for her. Therefore, they shouted that it was urgent to bring a stretcher. His Majesty was greatly frightened, and asked that a doctor be called immediately, or the servants themselves bring him here. Our heroine was surrounded by people in wet, black clothes. Everything looked quite gloomy. At that moment, the girl saw uncontrollable rage in the eyes of the young man, which could not be hidden. It was then that Sheena realized that this world was part of a book novel that she had read earlier. The Empire of Snow, which is called Snowdon, was a place that was blessed by the spirits. The 24th emperor's name was Dagon Royce Arthur Whitesnow. His wife was the princess of the Kingdom of Rain, named Joni. The result of their union was the birth of Prince Aidan Henry Whitesnow. But the emperor was not interested in all this, and he did not pay attention to either her or his own son. But one day, Melissa, who was an ordinary aristocrat, won his heart. The man fell head over heels in love and decided that she should become his empress. It was not official, but the young man made such a choice for himself. After this, Nishina Erin Whitesnow was born, who was the result of their love. She had jet black hair, smooth white skin, and sky blue eyes. The girl, who possessed the typical features of the imperial family, was considered the treasure of the entire empire and a beauty who was raised with great love. When she reached adulthood, she could already enter into a contract with the water spirit. Recognizing her capabilities and flexible nature, the princess was nicknamed the Little Sun of the Snowdon Empire. Everyone loved the girl very much and believed that her future should be wonderful and great. But everything came to an end when the prince, supported by his mother's homeland, killed the emperor and his entire retinue. Princess Sheena was captured and sent into exile to the most distant, ruined edges of the empire. There, the girl was engaged in secretly treating people who needed help. She intended to live this way until her death. However, Nishina's name became more and more popular, and her influence grew, as did her abilities. The prince began to consider her a potential threat to himself and ordered his most loyal knight, Rubus Russell, to kill this woman. When she saw him, the saint realized that her brother had given this terrible order after all. Now it was truly over for her. The young man grabbed his sword and said that if she has last words, then let her say them. Nishina realized that if he asked about it, then her words would be conveyed to his majesty. Therefore, the girl said that be the sun that will illuminate everything, even in the most distant corners of the empire. This is exactly how the princess, whom everyone loved and respected very much, died. Only the prince remained alive, who took the bloody throne. He had the will of the emperor he so desired to become, but instead he lost all human qualities. When it seemed that everything had gone downhill, a girl appeared who radically changed his life and, one might say, became a savior. In the literary work called Snow White, the main character was not a princess at all. When the girl opened her eyes, the servant fearfully asked if she was okay. Sheena questioned how she ended up in her bed. The maid explained that she had lost consciousness, so they carried her to her room. Let her rest, and if it suddenly gets worse, she will definitely call a doctor. When the girl was left alone, she thought that if this dream turned out to be true, then she might die soon. But she didn't want that. Grabbing a piece of paper, our heroine thought that even her parents died at the hands of her older brother. She doesn't want to die and will never allow this to happen. Sheena must find a way to keep everyone alive and her brother happy. In the work, Nishina had no grievances or regrets. She came to terms with her tragic end in complete solitude. Now the girl remembered everything. In the future, Aiden's older brother will order her to be killed. His sister hurt him just by existing, since no one paid attention to him because of her. Her happy life became the reason for her brother's loneliness, but she decided not to dwell on it, because she was afraid that she would also be rejected. Such moments led to real hatred gradually growing in the young man's heart. His Majesty despised his sister, and she remained his enemy to the very end. Such a terrible future simply should not happen. The girl must make sure that in the end everyone is happy, and no one harbors resentment or anger. Joey appeared in the room again and exclaimed why Her Majesty got out of bed. She needed peace. His Highness should arrive soon, and she's sitting here drawing something. Nishina replied that it was good, and in that case it would be better to lie down. Then she asked how the funeral went. The maid replied that they ended as soon as she felt ill. The girl asked in surprise why, because they were supposed to continue after that. Joey replied that this was the emperor's order. The man said that the treasure of their empire is more important than any funeral. Our heroine asked if he really said that. The servant replied that yes, so let her not worry about anything and continue to rest. The girl was completely horrified, because everything had already begun to go downhill. Will she really die earlier than in the story? No matter how much the girl thought about how to fix everything, only 3 things came to mind. First, the father must make the elder brother his heir. Secondly, it is necessary to make him hate her less. These will be the first steps towards changing the future. But if all this had been possible, she would not have died. Even if she says that she doesn't care about the throne at all, there is no guarantee that her brother will believe her. Plus, the choice of a receiver is the business of the king, who is extremely picky. In order to convince him, it is necessary to redirect the power that supports the princess to the prince. You can't do this too abruptly. It won't be possible to get closer to his brother right away either, since his mother's funeral was recently disrupted because of her. As soon as that hateful gaze that she felt on herself pops up in her head, her courage seems to blow away with the wind. Therefore, only the third point remains, to get closer to the knight close to him and press for pity. Everything needs to be done so that Rubus Russell does not kill her, but lets her go. There's no point in sending him anywhere or interfering with his friendship with Aiden. After all, the elder brother can order any other knight to do the same. It's better to keep him close and just watch. But the main question still remained: how to make him let her go. If such an order is given by His Majesty, then any knight must carry it out without a doubt. There is no easy way out of this situation. Nishina thought that she was the main character in the novel Snow White. But pitch-black hair, sky-blue eyes, and snow-white skin are not unique to her. In any case, this situation is much better than the future from her memories. If the girl manages to win over the knight with her silver hair, then she must make sure that in the future he will not be able to kill her. Like the same hunter from Snow White who took pity on her and helped her escape. In this case, our heroine herself needs to become that same Snow White. When she walked into the dining room, her parents asked if she was okay and why she wasn't resting. Sheena replied that she was already fine, so she came to eat with them. Deegan Royce Arthur Whitesnow said that her condition is due to blood stagnation, but fortunately, it is not such a dangerous disease. But her health still needs to be monitored. The daughter replied that recently she had been reading books until late at night, and perhaps this happened precisely because of lack of sleep. Then the girl said that she knew that he had a lot of very urgent political matters to attend to. The man replied that they were not that important. Our heroine noted to herself that she knew that they were urgent because she saw the tears of his assistant and it was unclear what to do now. Melissa turned to her daughter and asked if she was okay, since she had eaten very poorly. In the eastern lands, to restore strength, they eat chicken, which is boiled in a broth with medicinal herbs. So let him try it. Sheena was confused because this chicken was simply huge. Mom asked why she didn't start eating. Did she really have no appetite? Stuttering, our heroine replied that everything was fine. Then it dawned on her that this was a great opportunity and said that she should start training to increase her stamina. Her father said that the doctor also said that she needed to work on it. The girl exclaimed that in this case she wanted to learn how to wield a sword. Of course, she won't be able to become an outstanding swordsman, but wouldn't that help improve her health? I thought to myself that this was a great chance to get closer to that silver-haired knight. The emperor thoughtfully said that taking care of one's health and body is one of the most important qualities of a future successor. So the man turned to Knight Hilton and said that he would train the princess in this martial art. Sheena was disappointed that everything did not go according to her plan, so she involuntarily and loudly exclaimed the word, "No." Everyone immediately looked at her in surprise, and she began to try to get out of this situation. So she said that Sir Hilton is a very important and strong knight, so he should not waste his time training her. The father objected that wouldn't it be better to choose the most outstanding person as a teacher? Our heroine objected that then their skills would not match in sparring, which is a very important part of training. Pay attention to the expression on the emperor's face. The girl said that, of course, she was not going to do this until she had the appropriate skills. Let him not worry. Deegan said that in this case, he would provide her with another knight. Sheena countered that others were also busy protecting the kingdom and the royal family, so she didn't want to take away their time for personal reasons. Rubus Russell became a knight at the age of 17. Thanks to his excellent skills, the young man was able to enter the palace after just 1 year. So, at the moment, he must be a student. Therefore, she said that, in her opinion, the best candidate would be a knight who was still just training. She believes that the disciple of the imperial family knight has enough knowledge to train her, and he will also be suitable for her further sparring. Plus, her father constantly tells her that she needs to make friends. If she can get close to him, she will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The emperor tried to say that if we talk about a teacher, then a real knight would be more suitable. But the girl interrupted him and said that she really wanted him to do as she wanted. Therefore, he replied that we can assume that he gave his consent. If this does not bring any results, then in a month Sir Hilton will become her teacher. After some time, our heroine prepared snacks and went with the knight to the site. On the way, the girl said that she was a little worried. The young man asked what was bothering her. Sheena replied that it was just because of the snacks. She began to think that she should have made a better pie instead of cookies and muffins. The young man replied that since the princess herself had prepared it, even simple flour should be liked. Who dares to complain and say that it is tasteless? The girl screamed that she was actually going to give it to her future teacher as a treat. How can you win someone over with ordinary flour? Our heroine thought to herself that Sir Hilton did not understand the serious situation. Suddenly, they met Aiden, her only brother and the one who ordered Rubus Russell to kill her. Sheena noted that the young man began to look even more haggard. She wondered if he was eating well at all. As he silently walked past her, our heroine called out to her brother and grabbed him by the sleeve. The young man, with dissatisfaction in his voice, asked what she needed from him. The girl felt so uncomfortable that she was confused and didn't know what to say. When the guy went on about his business, our heroine thought about what she could even say to him. Apologize for the fact that her mother took his mother's place or what. The knight asked if she was okay. The girl thought to herself that Aiden might perceive her consolations as ridicule. Then she turned to the young man and said that everything was fine, so they could move on. When they arrived at their destination, Sir Hilton said that it was a training ground for apprentices. They live there in groups and are focused only on training. They may experience some discomfort living together, since most of them are aristocrats, but they cultivate a spirit of camaraderie in them. Pay attention to the fact that the girl turns her head in different directions. The knight asked if she was looking for someone by chance. Our heroine thoughtfully replied that no, but then I finally found the young man I was looking for, namely Rubus Russell. Nishina stood and looked at him in fascination, thinking about how handsome he was. The guy had silver hair, through which beautiful red eyes showed through. It's like seeing camellias blooming in the snow in front of you. But she completely forgot that they tried to cure his eyes, since it is believed that this color is a symbol of the devil. It was unknown whether this was true or just a legend, but people throughout the empire believed it. This is exactly how the second son of Earl Russell was born. The situation was further aggravated by the fact that his mother, a maid, died during childbirth due to severe complications. False rumors quickly began to spread that the child allegedly ate his mother during birth, so the young man grew up completely alone. Everything that happened to the young man and made him what he is at the moment. The guy has turned into someone who bows his head to everyone. Our heroine wondered to herself that she had really begun to show sympathy for him. Then Sir Richard ran up to them and asked forgiveness for being late. Sheena said it was no big deal. He was probably very surprised that the girl decided to come so unexpectedly. Since she is an uninvited guest, she brought snacks with her. The man exclaimed that she was always welcome, and there was no need to say that. The man then shouted to all the students that he was calling a break. The princess herself prepared these treats, so let them take turns. Richard asked what business she decided to come for. Hilton said that he would explain everything to him himself. Noticing that Rubus was closely examining the cookies, our heroine wondered why he didn't eat it, or whether he didn't like it. She would hate to see the picture of him throwing the cookies she made on the ground. But when the young man finally took a bite, Nishina exhaled with relief. When Richard realized that they were looking for a strength training coach among the students, Hilton said that he would like to hear his recommendations for the most capable cadet. Our heroine silently hoped that he would recommend Russell, since he is the best. But suddenly the man asked what they thought about Henry's student. The boy is very capable and has a calm character, so he won't be able to cause much trouble. The princess screamed loudly that no, because she needed the best of the best. She wants to learn how to spar with knights. Richard replied that Rubus Russell excelled in skill. The young man is very gifted and shows excellent results. The girl immediately exclaimed that this option suited her, and turning to the guy, she said that she wanted him to become her mentor. Without thinking twice, the young man replied that he did not want to. He did not need it and was not interested. Our heroine did not expect such a turn of events and did not understand at all what to do next. It turned out that our heroine simply imagined a situation that could happen and thought about what she should do if he really answered that way. All the other students did not understand why him, because this boy was cursed. Meanwhile, the young man approached Sheena, greeted Her Highness, and said that his name was Rubus Russell. Richard said that the girl wants to learn fencing, so can he help her with this? Our heroine thought to herself that he seemed to be embarrassed. But this was the only way to establish contact with him. He cannot refuse the request of the imperial family. When the pause dragged on and the young man took too long to answer, the girl exclaimed that she would not take much of his time. When the boy nodded slightly, our heroine happily said that she thanked him very much and he could count on her. She thought to herself that she had succeeded, and all that was left was to make friends with him. David, who is the secretary of the imperial family, as well as the teacher of the prince and princess, talked about how the Snowdon Empire is the richest and most powerful in the entire continent of Thiel. Thanks to the protection of spirits and their descendants, she exists in a calm and peaceful time. Our heroine asked that wasn't the Wind Empire more powerful in terms of strength. The professor replied that having knowledge about other countries is the foundation for a future ruler. The prince is far ahead of her in this. The girl replied that competition does not motivate her. This never interested the girl. The teacher suggested we talk about what has been happening for the last 200 years, namely the desertification of the Wind Empire. Desertification means the degradation of land in sparse, semi-sparse, and arid areas of the globe, which is caused by human activities as well as natural factors. The reason why this happens is unknown for a long period of time. What is clear is that more than half of the current Western territory has turned into a land of death. That is why the Wind Empire is experiencing food shortages and strives for the Forest of Spirits, which is located on the border with the Snowdon Empire. Our heroine asked if they didn't already own part of the forest. David replied that it was very small compared to the share they owned. The Earth will not be able to solve the problem of food shortages. People who are born into hunger turn into robbers, and cross the border illegally. More recently, there was even a case of crossing through the neighboring kingdom of Rhine. Sheena asked how people live at the border and if everything is okay with them. The teacher said that he could not answer this question for sure, but the guards of the empire were working hard to maintain and protect public safety. There are specially trained imperial knights and mercenaries, namely the Scope, Russell, Campbell, and Kebendashi dynasties, but the Russells have long since lost the rank of guards. If the second son had not been active 2 years ago in the war with marauders on the border, he would have been immediately deprived of his title. The professor then asked if she knew the nickname he received on the battlefield at the age of 13. The girl replied that she knew. Due to his abilities with a sword, the young man was nicknamed the Demon of Winter. David said that he heard that the second son of the Russell family became her fencing teacher. In fact, he doesn't know anything about him, and the man is worried that he can become a good mentor for her. After some time, Sheena sat under a tree and thought that in the original story, Rubus probably died like that. He didn't want anyone to remember his death. The guy must have always been ready for this. Then the voice of a young man was heard from the side, asking for forgiveness for being late. Looking at him, our heroine noted that this is all clear from his behavior. The young man tries not to look other people in the eyes. Rising to her feet, the girl replied that everything was fine, and she just came a little earlier, so there was no need to apologize. I thought to myself that the more the young man saw, the more confused he began to be about which of them deserved compassion more. The boy was a demon of winter, who is a professional swordsman, and at the same time, someone who, out of habit, always lowers his eyes. So now she really didn't know who she should feel more sorry for. And he himself won't answer her now, so it's necessary to get closer to him. The guy said that he heard that she wants to learn fencing in order to become tougher. Sheena replied that everything was correct. Rubus said that she would need strength to hold the sword in her hands, so it would be better to start with light exercises. Our heroine replied that she was ready to start her first lesson. The princess began to imagine in her head how she was running with a weight tied to her back, and thought that fencing in general was just an excuse to get closer to Russell, and he began to talk about some kind of exercise. I wondered if she would become as strong if she trained with the best knight that is Rubus. In this case, she will have a better chance of survival. The young man said that their training today would consist of running 10 laps around the training ground. Further training will depend on how resilient she is. Our heroine exclaimed that it was good, Sir Russell. The boy said that she could simply call him by his name. Sheena objected that now he is her teacher, so it's impossible. Then she asked if he could look at her when they were talking. The guy asked why she was embarrassed. The girl replied that, of course not. The young man has beautiful eyes that look like a camellia flower, so they are very beautiful. When she saw him for the first time, she was so amazed by the beauty of the young man that she couldn't even put 2 words together. The young man ignored everything she said and suggested finally starting training. Our heroine turned out to have very little stamina, and after just a couple of laps, she could no longer run. The next day, she thought that she would die because her legs hurt so much and she had to move holding onto the walls, and if she had run all 10, she would definitely not have gotten up. When Sheena entered the office, Carlos, who is a philosophy teacher, exclaimed that it was surprising that she arrived on time. The world must have turned upside down. The girl replied that since she was allowed to come later, she could go and rest a little more, because yesterday she trained so hard that her legs were still weak. The man got angry and shouted that it was just a joke. Today in class, they will continue to study the topic of monarchism, which they did not have time to finish in the last lesson. Sometimes the monarch has to behave differently than people would like. A strong country needs a strong emperor. In order to maintain his rule, he must earn the love of others. The girl thought to herself that she did not want to study this at all, since she had no intention of following the path of an heir. Then she asked whether it is necessary for a monarch to have such a quality as benevolence. The teacher replied, no. You just need to look friendly. The monarch does not need to be merciful and fair. The main qualities that he must possess are prudence and the ability to analyze. Her Highness seems to think like a ruler. Her Highness. Our heroine thought to herself that this was not about her at all. She just realized that she absolutely does not fit into this image. Carlos talked about the need not to indulge in sympathy for others and not to forgive so easily. But when she understands the reason for another person's action, she can no longer help but forgive. Sheena can't hate Aiden and not sympathize with Rubus. Because from the novel, she learned what they had to go through. The girl can't help but wish these boys happiness. The more she learned about the qualities required of a monarch, the more she realized that she was not suited for this role. Watching how our heroine, holding her by the wall, was getting ready to go back to training, Sir Hilton said that she needed to rest, but the girl firmly answered that no. The young man exclaimed that why not, if she now walks worse than a newborn fawn. Sheena exclaimed that she said that she would still go to this training session, so there is no need to follow her. I thought to myself that I couldn't waste this precious time on rest. Training takes place only 1 hour a day. Besides, she prepared today. Our heroine barely made it to the meeting place with Russell and asked for forgiveness for being late. Then she began to say that it was because it was difficult for her to walk, but then she quickly corrected herself and said that the lesson just ended later than usual, after which the girl asked how long he had been waiting for her. The young man replied that no. She noted to herself that today, Rubus practically does not hide his eyes. He must have decided to listen to her words, so she should try too. Then she exclaimed that it was necessary to start training as soon as possible and clarified what they would be doing today. The guy said she needed to run 2 laps around the training ground, but then corrected himself and added that although no, her goal for today would be 1 lap. Let her highness not hesitate to say if he runs too fast and it becomes difficult for her. Our heroine noted to herself that he cares about her so much, so she should run well. But suddenly she tripped and fell face down on the ground. The young man quickly ran up to her and asked if everything was okay. The girl replied that it seemed like yes. Sheena was very ashamed, but unexpectedly the guy apologized and, taking her foot, said that during training it was necessary to wear more comfortable shoes. Then he asked if Her Majesty could forgive his rudeness. The girl did not understand what he was talking about. The young man abruptly picked her up, and Sheena wondered why he was doing this. The guy calmly said that if she twitches like that, she might fall. Our heroine screamed for him to let her go. The young man asked whether she could walk on her own. Sheena replied, no. The guy said that in this case, if she allows, he will take her to the palace. The girl thought that she needed to rehabilitate herself because of her clumsiness, so she took out a cookie and asked if he would try it. Then she realized that his hands were full and he couldn't eat on his own, so she hand-fed him. After some time in the palace, Joey was indignant at what the princess was doing so much that she even managed to injure her leg. Then she yelled at Sir Hilton and nervously asked how he could allow Her Highness to overdo it so much. The young man muttered that he tried to stop her, but she did not listen to him. The maid objected that she should have tried better. The girl thought to herself that thanks to this training, she managed to get a little closer to Rubus. He even agreed to try her cookies, although he was confused at first. Plus, she got to see his sweet side. As she tightened the bandage on her leg, Joey exclaimed how she could still sit and smile after getting hurt. The maid thinks that her problem was aggravated early because of uncomfortable shoes. Therefore, she will order that special shoes be prepared for her for training, but her activities are on pause until the wound on her leg heals and she can walk normally. The princess tried to object that it was necessary to train every day, but the maid sternly answered no. Our heroine began to really panic because she hoped that she could get closer to Russell. Therefore, she looked at Sir Hilton with a pleading look and mentally asked him to help her. But when the young man silently looked away, the girl thought to herself that he was a real traitor. Joey looked intently at our heroine and told the girl to rest calmly. Sheena could now only think that she wouldn't be able to train for now, but she could still come up and thank the young man personally. A week later, the girl was indignant that she did not think that she would be prohibited from leaving the palace until her leg had fully recovered. But training resumes from today, so Rubus will need to be thanked for helping her. Her mother noted that Sheena looked very tired, so she asked if the training was too hard for her. Our heroine thought to herself that if she found out that the girl got hurt at the very beginning of the training, she would tell her to immediately give it all up. So she exclaimed that she really liked everything. The woman upsetly said that she was now worried because she was so constantly busy, and her mother invited her to a tea party. Sheena exclaimed that everything was fine. It's very nice to enjoy tea with her after a long time. Plus, all the desserts are so delicious. The woman said that she had heard that she had recently become interested in making desserts, so she made these cupcakes for her. Having taken a bite, the girl noted that they were simply incredibly tasty. The dough is soft and airy like a cloud, and the cream on top is so sweet that it melts on the tongue. The strawberry flavor was also very strong. It was so delicious that she thought it would be a good idea to give Sir Russell a try. Noticing that her daughter really liked them, the Empress said that she would cook more and take these with her to eat later. Sheena thought to herself that today's bribe to Rubus would be great. Mother said that if she liked it so much, she would make this dessert the main one at the next tea party. Our heroine did not understand what she was talking about. The Empress explained that it was necessary to mark the beginning of the social season. The girl noted to herself that, exactly, why didn't she think about this earlier? The easiest way to meet with Mother and the princess's supporters is at a tea party. It was too early to convince them to pay attention to her brother, but at least she could identify potential allies in advance. Therefore, the princess said that if the Empress did not mind, then she would also like to be present. The woman exclaimed that if she wanted, then of course. Mom is so happy that she can be at the tea party with her daughter. This is her long-time dream. Our heroine felt ashamed that her intention to attend the tea party was due to another reason, and her mother was so happy. But there was no other choice. Therefore, she said out loud that she would please let her know when the date was determined. I thought to myself that this would be the beginning of a happy ending for her and the Empress. The girl laid the groundwork to convince her father to choose Aiden as his heir. All that remained was to improve my relationship with my brother, and that scared me the most. When Sheena sighed involuntarily, Joey immediately asked worriedly if her leg still hurt. The girl replied that it was not because of her. When the maid asked what happened, our heroine asked how she could establish contacts with a person who hated her. The woman replied, "What about showing him her good sides? For example, the fact that for her other people's wounds are more important than her own. This can help a person who doesn't tell anyone about their pain." Our heroine asked that then the pain of that person would become weaker. Joey said no. Even if she understands him, his pain will not become less. However, he will be less lonely. Don't worry so much. The maid is sure that everything will work out for her. Then the woman handed her the basket and asked her to be more careful this time during training. Shirina thanked her. Even when she asked, she thought that the maid had said everything correctly. In this way, the girl will at least be able to save her brother from this endless loneliness. But who would have thought that they would meet so quickly? The girl asked where her older brother was going. If he was going to training, then she should go that way too. The young man snorted and wanted to pass by, but on our heroine, she grabbed his hand and asked him to talk to her for a while. The elder brother quickly freed his hand and exclaimed that she was crazy. The girl noted to herself that this was the same episode that she had read about in the original novel. In the book, after this point, Sheena never spoke to her brother again. Now, being in her place, she finally understood everything. The girl wasn't avoiding Aiden out of fear that he would hurt her again. The whole point was that she herself did not want to hurt him. Instead of accepting future tragedy in an attempt to do no harm, it is much better to move towards a happy ending, even if it hurts for a while. After some time, our heroine was already running around the training ground and thinking that it seemed that her hips and heart were about to explode. When she fell to her knees and exclaimed that she couldn't do this anymore, the young man worriedly asked if Her Highness was all right. The girl replied that no, so could they skip today's lesson. Afterwards, Sheena decided to have a picnic, and told Sir Russell that she had brought macaroons and chocolate cupcakes. Her mother prepared it all, and it turned out so delicious that she simply could not help but share it with him. When the guy took a bite, the girl felt very relieved as he seemed to like it. Rubus asked why Her Majesty did not eat anything. The girl replied that she had already eaten several before. She brought all this especially for him, so let him take his time and eat in peace. Our heroine thought to herself that he eats so well. Maybe that's why her mother fed her various delicacies, since at the moment she seems to be full just looking at Rubus. When the knight's student said that everything was very tasty, the girl exclaimed that she was very happy and clarified what he liked the most. The young man pointed his finger at the chocolate cupcake and said one word: "This." The princess noted that apparently the young man was very fond of sweets. Even in the original story, it was never mentioned what exactly he liked. Maybe he just didn't have a chance to find out. Now, instead of bribes, the girl will prepare gifts for her precious mentor. It would be nice if she could become so close to her older brother. The chief chamberlain approached them and said that he was looking for our heroine. She asked if something had happened. The old man replied that he simply came to convey the good news to the princess. His Majesty has ordered that she also attend the regular meetings tomorrow. The man wants to express his congratulations to her, as the girl is one step closer to the throne. Sheena was in shock and couldn't understand how this could even happen. At the meeting, it was discussed that in the Wind Empire, everyone seemed to have gone crazy and looked down on them. They want Snowdon to give them the entire forest of dryads in exchange for a magic stone. The dryad forest is considered sacred in the Snowdon Empire. This is the land of spirits, which has completely preserved its original appearance. But if these lands are given at the request of Wind, then it will certainly be destroyed, like all the other forests that once belonged to them. But you cannot simply ignore their demands. After all, where there is no way for the power of spirit spellcasters, everything is set in motion by the power of magic stones. Those present reflected that the destruction of the sacred forest was a huge problem. In return, they must demand something more, but then they cannot avoid armed conflicts, and this cannot be allowed either. Without magic stones, life will be difficult, and it is unclear what to do now. Our heroine understood that this issue was quite serious, but she did not see the point in useless disputes. There was an atmosphere of selfishness, greed, and incompetence that simply did not allow her to breathe freely. One of the young men said that the argument was an argument, but they should never back down. The man asked irritably that he was really proposing to start a war. Just imagine how much they can lose. The young man replied that the Scoff House is not afraid to lose. He can't say anything about the Albans, who never once stuck their nose out of the capital. The man got angry and shouted that he didn't understand that, first of all, they wanted to protect the entire population of the empire. The guy objected that he was not aware that they were so close to the people. The girl thought to herself that the atmosphere around was simply disgusting. She wanted to scream and stop all this arguing. She didn't understand how her older brother tolerated all this. Suddenly, the emperor shouted that enough was enough and asked the chancellor what she thought about the situation. The woman replied that she would tell her opinion directly. If they start a war, they will cause enormous damage to the empire. Military spending will more than double, and if this develops into a full-scale war, then the damage will be even greater than in the battle on the border 2 years ago. The man asked what she proposed to do. Should she submit and agree to all the conditions in order to avoid a battle? The chancellor replied that if they gave up the forest, at the request of the Wind Empire, then the likelihood of a war starting in the next 5 years would drop by as much as 30%. But then the battle would definitely take place in 10 years. Our heroine thought that in the story, the war began 2 years later. But at that time, the forest still belonged to the Snowdon Empire. Nishina did not leave her homeland until her death, and died in that forest of dryads. Therefore, the girl knew that today he would definitely not be handed over to the Wind Empire. The next issue for discussion was that if war breaks out, who will take command? Someone said that His Majesty. But another man objected that an agreement with the Rhine kingdom was just around the corner, so the emperor simply could not be absent from the palace. The two heirs cannot be trusted with this, since they are still too young. The girl asked if she could say something. I thought to myself that this was a great opportunity to at least slightly change the image of my older brother in my father's eyes. After which she said that although she had not yet reached adulthood, she was already old enough to fulfill the duties of a member of the imperial family. She is ready to take responsibility when necessary, and of course her brother thinks the same. When the emperor asked his son if this was so, the young man replied that he was ready to take responsibility whenever his father ordered him. Our heroine noted to herself that it seemed that her father's mood had lifted a little. The work said that Aiden was forced to go to war, but now the impression of him will definitely change. It would be nice to get a little closer to him. But then she saw the look of her older brother, who was full of hatred, and wondered if she had done wrong. One of the men said that he had no idea that the princess had such deep thoughts. She proves herself to be a worthy heir, and stood out on her first day at the meeting. Sheena was horrified that everything did not go as she had expected. Did it really look like she wasn't doing all this for Aiden, but was trying to compete with him? While the meeting is not over, it is urgent to turn all attention to him. But she did not have time to say anything, because the emperor said that this decision could not be made hastily, so it was necessary to end there for now. Everyone can be free. Our heroine thought that if it all ended like this, it would become a huge misunderstanding. The young man hissed that it seemed to him that she already understood where her place was. But as he saw, she was unable to keep her mouth shut. It turns out that the girl finally decided to take the throne into her own hands. After some time, our heroine sat on the street and thought that it was just a wonderful day to walk in the warm sun and admire the beautiful flowers and butterflies. But there was no point in this now, since her brother became even more angry with her. She didn't even have a chance to explain everything to him and clear up the misunderstanding. After that, she spent the whole night thinking about how to help Aiden and did not understand what to do now. Suddenly, Rubus ran up to her and, trying to catch his breath, asked for forgiveness for being late, after which the young man bowed and greeted Her Highness. The girl smiled and replied that there was nothing wrong with the fact that he was late, so there was no need to exhaust yourself so much, because suddenly he would get hurt. Sheena thought to herself that the young man was already all wounded, and she hoped that he would not be in pain anymore. Then she noticed the scar on his face and wondered if and when he had gotten it. Suddenly, the young man leaned away from her. The girl noted that she was apparently too close. She just behaved like this with Sir Hilton since childhood, so she got used to it. But because of the meeting, I couldn't sleep for a long time, so now I don't feel well and made a mistake. The girl asked for forgiveness for touching him without permission, and noted to herself that he was simply an incredible cutie. Then she cleared her throat and said that Sir Russell had said that he would have another training session later, so maybe they would start early. The guy replied that he thought it would be better to let her rest a little, as she looked tired. Our heroine asked that he was really suggesting that she skip training. In this case, they will not start it until he eats everything she brought with her. The girl has already eaten, so she will rest for now. The girl thought to herself that every time she saw him eat, she noticed that Rubus was really very cute. At such moments, he absolutely does not look his age, but he began to kill at an even younger age than at the moment. The 13-year-old boy mastered a sword as big as himself and fought, trying not to break under the weight of war. And then she accidentally said out loud that, if you think about it, 2 years ago he participated in the war. The young man replied that everything was correct. Our heroine exclaimed that she had really said that. Russell replied that it was okay. Everything was fine. The girl thought to herself that this came out of her completely by accident. It is obvious that he will not have any good memories from the war, but she said that she wanted to ask him something. If he doesn't want to answer, then there's no need. Rubus replied that everything was fine and let her ask. During the conflict, the Wind Empire stated that it had nothing to do with the marauders on the border. They say that these were hungry people. Is it true? The young man replied that most of them were very well trained. The girl thought that it was quite expected that Wind had sent soldiers there, but hearing it firsthand was even harder. After all, only trained people could have fought Snowden for so long. But unexpectedly, the guy added that among them there were ordinary people who were forced to become looters due to hunger. Sheena first asked if it was painful, but then she came to her senses and added that he should pretend that he didn't hear anything. I thought to myself that this could not be so. What is she even asking about? The soldiers clearly suffered a lot then. The youth said they were proud to protect their loved ones and families. The girl thought to herself that it all looked as if he was convincing her that these were not forced sacrifices. Is he really trying to console her? Yet these were sacrifices made for the sake of those in power. She must do everything possible to ensure that they are not in vain. Our heroine believes that she will soon be able to find a way. It was so warm outside and smelled like spring. This situation was starting to make her sleepy, so she decided to rest just a little bit until he ate everything. Suddenly, the girl found herself in some strange place, and it was very dark around. She did not understand where she was, and saw this place for the first time. From behind the doors, she heard someone telling His Highness that he had brought that same knight. It was her teacher who greeted His Majesty and introduced himself as Rubus Russell. Our heroine noted that there was something wrong. The elder brother said that it means that he has the eyes of a monster. These are just rumors, and he has the most ordinary look. If he no longer has a reason to exist, then let him just put his worthless life in his hands. The young man bowed and replied that he agreed. Sheena noted to herself that it seemed that this was the very future that she had read about in the original work. This means that soon they will capture the castle, and the brother will take the throne. These are the events that our heroine is obliged to prevent. The elder brother told the young man to remain in the vanguard, and in the meantime, he would go straight to the emperor. The guy replied that he understood everything. The girl was turning over in her head everything that was going to happen next, and thinking that she couldn't allow this to happen. One of the servants then informed His Majesty that Sir Russell had died during the battle. The girl was simply terrified and worried that this whole nightmare could come true. Sheena suddenly woke up in a cold sweat and began to breathe heavily. Rubus asked if she was okay. The girl replied that yes, but she did not understand why the whole world turned so red. His eyes, ears, and hair, absolutely everything turned red. Then our heroine noticed that the sun was already setting below the horizon. Therefore, she asked him to say that she was mistaken. But the guy replied that everything was as she said. The sun was already setting. Sheena screamed in horror that not that, because she was supposed to have a history lesson after lunch. He also had a training session planned. Wasn't he late for it? Rubus replied that everything was fine. The girl objected that no, it was necessary to wake her up. Russell replied that he wanted to take her to the palace, but he could not touch her without permission, so he should forgive him. Our heroine thought to herself that indeed it was actually her fault. That's why she said that she needed to apologize. She knows that training is very important for knights, and because of her, he let her pass without warning. They say that the apprentice knights are especially strict in case they get angry with him. In any case, it's better for her to go and explain everything herself. The young man replied that everything was fine. Her Highness's rest is much more important than anything else. The girl thought to herself why he is so kind. She said out loud that if he was scolded for being late, he should definitely say that it was because of her. After a while, Sheena thought that even though he answered that he agreed, he still wouldn't say it, since she asked him to. If Rubus is severely punished because of her, and he begins to distance himself, then getting closer to him again will be much more difficult. The maids, observing her strange behavior, asked if she was hungry, or maybe something hurt, and she needed to call a doctor. The girl immediately exclaimed that everything was fine, and she simply had no appetite. Joey asked that maybe she should cook something different. Our heroine replied that the problem was not food at all. The maid exclaimed that she must have been tired from training, and in order to regain her strength, she needed to eat well. The girl thought to herself that instead of training, she slept well. since she slept for half a day. But the maids did not know about this, so one said that she would go and prepare a hot bath for her to relieve fatigue, and the second would bring her hot milk. Our heroine thought to herself that what she needed now was not hot milk, but a magical tool that could rewind time so that she could fix everything. Sir Hilton entered the room and asked for forgiveness for coming so late. But suddenly, he was knocked down by the girls, who shouted that he should not stand in their way. Looking at the young man, who was perplexed, our heroine noted to herself that Joey and Alice were so strong and were very careless about the ball-handling genius, Sir Hilton. The girl clarified whether the young man had come from the training ground. The knight replied that yes, he instructed the students and came to her. Then he wanted to continue his speech, but Sheena interrupted him and asked if he had seen Sir Russell, after which she did not wait for an answer, and blurted out that Rubus was absent from the afternoon training precisely because of her. Hilton thoughtfully replied that this is how it is, and all this time he was wondering why it wasn't there. The guy never missed anything without a reason. Our heroine asked if he was punished. The knight replied that it was not he, but Sir Richard, who was responsible for the punishment. The girl began to scream in panic that it was necessary to stop that man. Sir Hilton is a real fool. The young man thought to himself that the princess hated him and called him names. Sheena was thinking about how she should now act in this situation and fix everything. Is it really possible that now everything has come to an end and everything will happen as in that terrible nightmare? The knight said that Her Highness did not need to worry so much because he was not punished so much. He just needs to run 30 laps around the training ground. It's hard to call this a punishment at all. Our heroine thought to herself that this was just terrible. After 3 circles, she is already ready to depart to another world. Besides, because of her, he won't get to dinner. Hilton asked if everything was okay with her and why she was behaving this way. The girl asked if he was still carrying out the punishment. The young man replied that when he walked towards her, he saw Rubus running the 25th lap. If he didn't get hurt, he should be done by now. When Sheena asked why he could get hurt, the knight explained that if his physical strength runs out, he might fall from overwork, but the young man is a real monster, so there is nothing to worry about. After listening to all this, our heroine screamed that she had to go and see Sir Russell right now. Carlos, who was a philosophy teacher, repeated the same thing to her several times. The man said that the monarch should not apologize to others for every mistake and bow his head to his subordinate. But she is not a monarch and does not consider Rubus a subordinate or a person below her in status. Therefore, the girl bowed to him and offered her sincere apologies for the fact that because of her, he had to carry out the punishment. I thought to myself that power cannot be more important than life. Sheena wanted to do this yesterday, but because Sir Hilton stopped her, she didn't succeed. Holding her leg, the young man shouted that it was too late and she would apologize tomorrow. When the girl once again said that she was very sorry that everything had turned out this way, Russell hesitantly replied that everything was fine. Let her raise her head. Sheena objected that she should still accept her apology. I thought to myself that I really wanted to apologize on my knees, but then he would have been even more taken aback. The girl then asked if he had gotten hurt from doing so many laps around the training ground. Confused, the young man replied that everything was fine with him and that she should not worry. Sheena was thinking about what Sir Hilton said, that he could have fallen from fatigue. Maybe the wounds are not visible because the clothes are closed. After which the girl asked him to sit down for a second and apologized in advance for what she was about to do. Then she took off his shoes and began to examine his feet. During the examination, Sheena saw that his leg had been combed down to the knee. Then she exclaimed that he was the one who called everything okay. Very serious early, and it must hurt a lot. The guy replied that it was nothing to worry about and it would soon heal on its own. Opening the ointment, the girl said that it was necessary to begin treatment, as a large scar could remain. While treating the wound, our heroine said that he should have warned the coach that he was late because of her. When the young man replied that everything was fine and there was no need, Sheena exclaimed that one could not be so kind. What's so bad about such a slight delay? Everyone knows that he is not one of those who will be late without a good reason. Perhaps she should do the same with Sir Richard's leg. The young man replied that everything was fine with him, and Her Highness should not worry so much. Suddenly, the girl clutched her heart and seemed to feel bad. The guy immediately jumped up and asked if she really had a problem with him. The girl answered yes. It can't stand it anymore, and it's because he smiles so beautifully. The young man became embarrassed and told her not to talk like that. Sheena thought to herself that he had such a sweet behavior that she couldn't even imagine in the original story. It said that no one had ever seen Rubus smile, but it turns out he can do it so beautifully. Was she the only one who saw him like this? The girl is glad to be the only one, but she feels a little sorry for Russell. After all, everyone considers him a knight without emotions. But she still wants to be the only one who sees him like this. Then she wondered what it meant to be the only one, what kind of selfish thoughts she had. When the guy asked if something was bothering her, the girl replied that it was all because of him. This is because he is so sweet and also fair and sincere. She will let go of the young man's hand only when he promises to smile so often in the future. When Russell replied that he promised, the girl asked to be sure to carry out what was said. After a while, Sheena sat in her room, surrounded by maids and Sir Hilton, and said that the weather outside was perfect, just right for taking a nap during the day. Then she asked Joey where what she asked her for was. The woman replied that she brought everything, and it was nothing more than invitations to the banquet. This meant it was time to suffer. Joey asked why the girl put her glasses on herself in the morning, even indoors. Our heroine replied that she wanted to catch the necessary mood. Then she asked how many invitations came in a month. The maid replied that, at her request, she selected only those that were sent by the girls before the coming-of-age ceremony. Sheena asked if Alice could choose 2 types of letter paper to bring to her. She will use them for rejections and tea party invitations. The girl replied that she would choose the most beautiful one. Joey said that apparently the girl was still confused. It's not necessary to do something like this before the coming-of-age ceremony, but Her Highness decided to host her own tea party. Our heroine replied that, indeed, who knew that everything would turn out like this? Sir Hilton exclaimed that their princess is already so big and even has her own tea party. The maid asked him what these excessive emotions were. Mother advised her to gain experience before going to her tea party. The woman said that it was necessary to first have a tea party with young ladies of her age, and then get acquainted with older ladies. Sheena knew that she was worried because her daughter had no social experience. In fact, our heroine absolutely did not want to get involved with all this. However, it could change her terrible future. Joey said that the ladies invited to the princess's first tea party would be given a great honor. The knight exclaimed that, of course, they will remember this for the rest of their lives. Then the young man asked how many guests she was going to invite. The girl replied that first she wanted to invite 4, since this was her first time organizing something herself. When Sir Hilton said that if there were only 4, then maybe she had already decided who would be on this list. Sheena replied that, of course. I thought to myself that because of this, all I did all night was look through documents. In the Snowden Empire, only the most outstanding person can become the heir of the family. Gender and seniority have no effect on this. Despite the fact that these girls have nothing to do with politics yet, they also have every chance of becoming the head of their families. Therefore, you need to choose exactly these. If nothing unexpected happens, they will become the main ones. At the Empress's tea party, she will need to find allies, and at her tea party, provide her older brother with new forces that will support him in the future. Meanwhile, Alice returned to the room and said that she had brought paper for letters. Our heroine thanked her for this. Then she added that as soon as she finished with them, she would need to go somewhere and the maid would go with her. I thought to myself that I needed to prepare a gift for my mentor. After a while, Alice said that she could do everything for her, if only she said it. The girl objected that the point was for her to do it herself. Sir Russell was punished and even injured because of her. This cannot be corrected with ordinary desserts, so you need to make them just perfect. The maid exclaimed that she was doing everything wrong. You don't need to hit, but rather draw a line with your hand. Then the cookie dough will soften completely. Then she demonstrated how it should be done. Our heroine was delighted and asked where she learned this. The girl replied that she did not study. It's just that her family is poor. Even if she were an aristocrat, if she had not learned to cook, there would simply be nothing to eat. That's why she's so familiar with working in the kitchen. Sheena noted to herself that the maid had previously mentioned that she was from a poor family. It seems that the bulk of her salary also goes to her family in another country. Maybe she should hire her as a pastry chef and raise the salary, or it would be too stressful. Alice added that she was very happy to help the princess. She will do everything possible to continue helping her in the future. The girl asked what, in that case, would she help her make unsweetened cookies. The woman asked why. Our heroine replied that she wanted to present it to her older brother. Alice replied that if so, she would tell her a delicious recipe. After some time, showing the burnt, broken cookies, Sheena asked the cook how he liked them. When the pause dragged on, the girl asked what was really so bad. Alice immediately looked at the man with a withering gaze, as if telling him to watch his tongue. So the pastry chef exclaimed that everything seemed pretty good. Our heroine immediately became inspired and said that next time she would try to cook more. Alice exclaimed that she was sure that next time she would do even better. The girl thanked her and said that she would go give the cookies and then come back. The maid then added that she hoped that with the help of cookies, she would be able to convey all her feelings. After some time, His Majesty was informed that a visitor had come to him. Sheena entered the office and asked for forgiveness if she was distracting him. The guy asked what she needed. The girl replied that she had brought some cookies especially for him. It's not sweet, so he should like it. The young man asked if she really brought him this treat because she added something to it. Our heroine was taken aback by such a question. The girl, of course, did not expect that he would be glad that she was coming, but she could not even imagine that he would begin to suspect her of attempting to poison her. Why is this happening? Is it because his mother, the Empress, died, and all her vassals turned away from him? Is this why he believes that her existence threatens him? Her brother still hates her so much that he doubts her every action. The guy said that if she came just for this, then she can turn around and leave. Sheena tried to say something, but the guy interrupted her and asked what she was waiting for. Was it really that he would escort her out of the office? Oscar carefully said that His Highness was very busy with work at the moment, so the servant could carry it out. The brother added that he should not let anyone in without his permission. Our heroine thought to herself that she was ready to suffer in order to understand him, but this does not mean that she is not at all offended by Aiden. If he hated her so much, then there was no need to create such memories with her in the first place. There was no need to look at her so tenderly. From the very beginning, there was no need to become an important person for her. Therefore, she asked out loud to wait and added that only a few minutes would be enough for her. As Sheena brought the cookie to her mouth, Aiden asked what she was doing. The girl replied that she was clearing up the misunderstanding. Then she put the bag on the table and asked the young man if he would try it now. Then she apologized for disturbing him and got ready to leave. I thought to myself that it was interesting whether he would throw it away or not. But it's okay. She just wanted to give him something. Already on the street, Oscar said that he wanted to be impudent and say something to the princess. If she really thinks about her older brother, then let her not try to get closer to him anymore. He had already experienced enough pain and suffering. May she forgive him for such insolence. While the servant was thinking to himself that the end had definitely come for him, our heroine said that she was very glad that Aiden had such a person who cared about him so much, but she will not be able to fulfill his request. The girl really wants to get closer to her older brother. After which, our heroine exclaimed that she was already late for class, so she needed to run. From today they will see each other more often. The servant noted that she seemed to be very worried. More precisely, not only she, but His Majesty too. On the way, Sheena was thinking about what to do if even Russell did not accept these cookies. She was sure that everything looked fine. Maybe just throw it away. But in general, Rubus is not one of those who would openly express his dissatisfaction. However, this may put him in a difficult position. It's probably better to eat it yourself and then make a new one. You should have asked the pastry chef to do everything yourself, and then it would have turned out absolutely delicious. Suddenly, the voice of a night student greeted Her Majesty. Sheena screamed in surprise and dropped the bag of cookies, after which she said that she was thinking about her own things and did not notice his presence at all. I noted to myself that it seemed like now I would just have to throw out the cookies. When the young man picked it up from the ground, our heroine exclaimed that there was no need to do this, since she wanted to throw it out, so let him give it to her immediately. Paying attention to the boy's guilty look, the girl thought to herself that she was very stupid. Why was it necessary to shout so much? Now, it seems, she has again increased the distance between them. Therefore, she quickly began to babble that she had prepared these cookies especially for him. But since she was doing this for the first time, the shape came out strange, and the taste was also not very good. Rupert asked if she really did this for him. The girl replied that yes, because of her he received punishment and even got hurt. She should have just asked the pastry chef about it, because she cooked it herself. Absolutely nothing came of it. After the young man put his hands forward, as if hinting at her giving the cookies to him, Sheena exclaimed that she could not do this, since it was not at all edible. When Russell began to apologize for his impudence, our heroine exclaimed that this was out of the question, because from the very beginning she was going to give these cookies to him. I thought to myself that I did this mechanically, because I really didn't want to give it away. What should I do now? Try asking him to return it or something. But if she takes them away again, the situation will become much worse. When the guy ate one thing and then took the second one, Sheena said that you shouldn't force yourself to eat it. Rubus objected that the cookies were really tasty, so why was she so worried? Our heroine thought to herself that she didn't know if Russell would kill her in the future. But the more she was near him, the faster her vigilance weakened. The young man, on the contrary, became her consolation. Then she asked if he was thirsty. If she had known that she would meet him, she would definitely have taken milk with her. Then she noticed that there was a small leaf on his head and decided to remove it, running her hand through his hair. Realizing the awkwardness of the situation, Sheena ran back and said that a leaf had just fallen. She didn't do it with malicious intent. The leaf did not want to detach itself from his beautiful hair. The girl was going to just brush it off. To herself, she thought that she needed to apologize and not make excuses. So what was she even talking about? When the young man replied that everything was fine, our heroine noted to herself that today he had already said this twice. It would be better if he told it like it is. She then asked if that was the case. Could she touch his hair a little more? Rubus replied yes. Stroking his hair, Sheena noted to herself that it was something. It was as if all the difficulties immediately began to be forgotten. It reminded her of therapy with calming animals. Russell asked if something was bothering her. The girl replied that no longer, but to tell the truth, something depressing happened today. But thanks to the young man, she begins to come to her senses and be distracted. So if he doesn't mind, she'd like to pet him a little again later. The guy replied that there was no problem. After some time, the maids calmed our heroine down and said that she shouldn't be nervous, as she would definitely handle it. The girl is beautiful every day, but today her beauty is even more dazzling. Joey and Alice lamented that their princess had finally grown up and would make her debut very soon. The girl thought to herself with what joy they suddenly burst into tears. Surprisingly, Sir Hilton shouted that if the two of them continued like this, Her Majesty would feel embarrassed because of them. The girl joyfully exclaimed that it was very good that he had come, and please let these two women go away. But suddenly the young man, his voice trembling with tears, began to say that today was the very day when the princess would hold her first tea ceremony. While the three of them were sobbing and lamenting that when their princess managed to grow up so much, Sheena decided that it was necessary to leave them as soon as possible. But still, thanks to them, the girl relaxed a little. She can't ruin everything because of some anxiety. This is her chance to let everyone know that she supports her big brother. Therefore, it is necessary to convince the future heads of aristocratic families of this. Today, she must under no circumstances make mistakes. Our heroine then greeted and thanked the ladies who had agreed to come and said that she was very glad to meet them. Then she added that her name is Nishina Erin Whitesnow, and she was very pleased to meet everyone present. Our heroine considered it necessary to invite to the meeting the daughter of Duke Orson, whose name was Valentina, and the daughter of the Marquis Lauren, whose name was Halsey. Their fathers are the emperor's most vocal supporters. Also, thanks to them, the political influence of the father increased. If these families side with their brother, then the father will have no choice and will have to appoint Aiden as his successor. Besides this, all the girls present could become her first good friends. Our heroine kept her eyes on Halsey Lauren, who was Nishina's friend in the original work. When the occasion arose to support Sheena politically, they were introduced to each other. But the girls did not want to participate in all the political games, so they simply became close to each other and spent a lot of time together. Their friendship was strong, like the trust of a vassal in his monarch. Because of this, Halsey and her family did not side with the prince after his successful rebellion. They, together with the current emperor, chose death. Our heroine hopes that this will not happen this time. The guest noticed that Sheena was constantly looking at her, so she asked if she accidentally wanted to tell her something. The girl replied that it was not entirely true. It's just that when she laughs, her whole body lights up and the princess can't stop looking at her. Valentina said that if she is talking about light, then at the moment the lady began to shine with such a red light, like a tomato. After some time, the girls sat and discussed the lessons they were being taught. Our heroine thought that she had gathered them all in order to recruit supporters for her brother. If she had known that the main topic of conversation would be lessons, she would not have done this. Halsey said that she had heard that Her Highness had recently begun to learn fencing. Then she asked if it was hard. The girl recalled that she almost fainted after running, but said out loud that due to the lack of physical training, of course, it was difficult, but exciting in its own way. If you work on your body, it will definitely become easier. Noticing that the atmosphere was already quite good, Sheena decided to get down to the main thing. Therefore, she said that, to be honest, the lessons of managing an empire were harder for her. It's embarrassing to talk about it, but she constantly listens to lectures from the teacher. It must be because her brother is so much better than her that they are constantly compared. The girl noted to herself that everyone was so surprised, which meant that the recent news must have just been gossip in order to finish off the prince after the death of the empress. Then she added that the teachers really constantly praise her brother and say that he is a great example, so she needs to study more. Not even a year has passed since my brother began to do part of his father's work, but everyone is already praising him. It is not clear whether this is why she is so often compared to him. She silently asked them to forgive her for breaking the atmosphere so suddenly, but all this was prepared only to show how she supported Aiden. Valentina exclaimed that this was simply outrageous. Does Her Highness really think so too? The girl replied that, of course, she will not dare to imitate her brother as she respects him very much. I thought to myself that I would like to say that I really want my brother to become the heir, but this could aggravate the situation. Halsey said that although she had never met the prince, she had heard from Mr. Carlos that he was truly an outstanding person. As the princess said, the young man really does his duties admirably. Sheena noted to herself that this was simply incredible. The daughter of the Lauren family, who are loyal vassals of the emperor, is currently protecting her brother. She probably does this so that an awkward situation does not arise, but still our heroine is grateful to her. Then the girl added that she recently started taking piano lessons and really liked it. Then I asked Her Highness what hobby she had. Sheena noted to herself that she was quite smart, as she quickly managed to change the topic. Sheena wondered what kind of hobby she had. Cooking desserts is not particularly suitable, as it is just a survival skill. That's why she said out loud that she didn't have any special hobby. She just loves to read books. The girls exclaimed in surprise that she loved to read. Then they asked if she had read Madame Fariza. This book is the most popular novel in the capital in recent times. She usually writes works about girls and knights. One of them likes the debut novel Knight of the Order the most, and the other likes The Secret Bridge of the Night. These are not books, but a work of art. The scene where the offending knight is asked to take off his shirt in order to be punished, and the description of how the training ends and his sweaty body is exposed is simply something. Then the girls began to discuss that if we talk about the hips, then watching the growth of these muscles is very exciting. Valentina replied that she would agree, since breasts are already something ordinary. Our heroine thought to herself that she wanted to escape. Then it dawned on her that there were a lot of knights around who also heard this chatter. Sir Hilton looked at Sheena and thought that she was so pure of soul. The girl looked at him, as if hinting that she herself was completely confused and wanted this to end as soon as possible. After a while, Joey said that, in her opinion, Her Highness should have a good rest today, as she was tired after drinking tea, which was her first. Sheena replied that she was fine. She thought to herself that her energy was actually drained because of something else. And then she said that she wanted to spend the next tea party with her and Alice. The woman asked if she managed to make friends with someone there, since she had been waiting for this tea party for a long time and even collected information about the lady. Sheena replied that yes, she had met someone. Inwardly, she mentally asked for forgiveness that she was actually going to get close to them, not for some innocent reason. The woman replied that since this was the first tea party, next time they could become even closer. Then she asked if any girl was interested in her. If yes, then it will be great if they become friends. The girl noted to herself that there would be a lot of trouble at the end of the tea party, but it all ended earlier than she thought. Suddenly she saw Sir Hilton sitting on the floor crying, so she asked what happened. The young man replied that he shouldn't do such a thing. Sheena asked what he was even talking about. The guy replied that what the ladies were talking about was too early for the young princess. The girl exclaimed what the knight was thinking about. This will not happen, under no circumstances. The man said that he would still warn her just in case, that if this aroused her curiosity, then it was too early for Her Highness to do such a thing. Nishina objected that she had never thought about it and had never even touched men's clothing. But then she remembered touching Rubus and thought that she seemed to be in trouble, but it was unintentional. Then she stated that she had urgent matters, and it was time for her to go. The young man did not understand why this happened so suddenly. A picture immediately appeared in his mind of her telling Russell if he had heard that she liked the bodies of knights, so let him take off his shirt immediately. The young man told Her Highness that this was impossible. The girl ran and thought that it was urgent to resolve this misunderstanding. If the young man felt some kind of hostility or shame, then all that remains is to sentence her to death. When she reached the place where the guy was, trying to catch her breath, and without looking at him, she exclaimed that she wanted to tell him something. When she looked up, she saw a young man standing naked to the waist and holding a shirt in his hands. The girl immediately covered her eyes with her hands, began to ask for forgiveness and say that she didn't see anything. I thought to myself that the original novel did not talk about Rubus Russell's childhood, since it was enough just a story about the main character, namely, Aiden. Only a couple of lines were written about Rubus, and she was very mistaken, thinking that she knew everything about him and thought very narrowly. Judging by these scars on his back, the young man went through a lot of pain. Sheena hopes he will never suffer again. Then she asked the young man if everything was okay. The guy replied that everything was fine, and he heard that she would be late today. His clothes got dirty from the last training session, so he was now accidentally disrespecting them. Then he asked for forgiveness and said that he would get dressed right away. The girl thought that she herself had expressed a desire to come and personally apologize, but in the end she had done something wrong. Then she mentally asked for forgiveness from her father and mother and said that this unlucky daughter would be the first to leave them. Then she asked Russell for forgiveness for touching him so thoughtlessly. The guy replied that everything was fine. Sheena knew he didn't want to hurt anyone, but there are many people who will want to take advantage of his kindness. Therefore, she will help him get rid of the habit of constantly saying that everything is fine. Then she exclaimed that this was not normal. If he is in an unfair situation, then he must defend his point of view. Status doesn't matter. If he is uncomfortable, then let him say so directly. When the young man replied that he understood everything, our heroine thought to herself that he would never object. But what kind of person was he? How can I explain to him that resisting something is not prohibited? Then she said that if she was unpleasant to him, then let him say so directly. Russell replied that he did not find Her Highness unpleasant. Sheena was embarrassed, but said that if one day he still feels that someone is treating him unfairly, then he should immediately say so. Scar replied that he understood. The girl noted to herself that because he answered without thinking, she, on the contrary, could not believe him, because this was not an order. It seems that all efforts are useless, but she still must somehow protect this good fellow. Therefore, she added that if someone tortures him or mocks him, he will definitely call her. Whoever it is, she will tell him off. If some person appears who causes him suffering, or if there is already one, then he must tell the princess about it. In fact, it will be just wonderful if our heroine manages to protect him on her own from people who hurt her, if he himself cannot. She uses any means, including her status and opportunities. Sheena will train hard and protect him. After some time, the girl was sailing on a boat with her mother, who said that it was very good to finally go out for a walk with her daughter. The princess said that she had heard that she had been very busy lately due to her preparations for receiving the title of Empress. The woman replied that it was so. Sheena replied that she still managed to find time to help her prepare the tea party. Mom replied that she simply could not help but help her. This is her daughter's first tea party. The girl said that she would still like to thank her mother somehow. She worries that it took up too much of her time while she was busy with work. The woman replied that there was no need to worry, because she already had to postpone her today's affairs to tomorrow, and isn't a walk with her daughter the best gratitude? Her father, who is now at the meeting, was very jealous of her. To receive a day off as a reward from the emperor himself is a great honor. Sheena thanked her for such kind words. Mother added that today is just a wonderful day for a boat ride, and she is very happy that she is spending this day with her beloved daughter. Whatever she hears again today, nothing can destroy this happiness. Our heroine noted to herself that her mother is a very insightful woman. If she expresses her opinion, she will not ignore it, citing immaturity. Initially, she would like to tell her that she is going to give up the inheritance throne. However, although my mother did not hide it, it was undoubtedly difficult for her to build her position and at the same time resist the Empress. Sheena is sure that all this was solely for her sake. But if Mom still decides that all her efforts and time were wasted, then she will simply be speechless. However, our heroine is still obliged to say this, since everyone's future is at stake. Therefore, having gathered her thoughts, the girl asked whether her mother expected her to become the son of the empire. When the pause dragged on, our heroine thought to herself that perhaps she had asked about this in vain, but she had no desire to sit on the throne. How can she convince her mother if she is against it? But suddenly, the woman replied that she only hoped that the girl would be happy, regardless of what place she would occupy. The main thing is that she smiles the same way she does now. She doesn't need anything else. Let your daughter not forget that she is always on her side. Since our heroine remembered the original novel, there has not been a day without anxiety. If this terrible future happens again, then it turns out that she spent so much time worrying and trying to find a way out in vain. It was very strange, because she had not yet figured everything out, but her heart calmed just from the words that her mother was on her side. I would like to stay in this calm for just a little while longer. If the life of each of them now has a happy ending, it will only be thanks to her mother who gave her her love. After finishing the hug, the girl blushed and thought to herself that she had already grown up, but she still behaved like a child. Mom asked that maybe we should slowly get ready. Suddenly, the girl heard an unfamiliar voice and thought that she had imagined it, but then she heard it again and looked down. There she saw a creature that was too small to be a human. Drops of water were floating in the air around him, and his hair merged with it. Our heroine began to lose her eyes and think that due to fatigue, she had already begun to hallucinate and saw a spirit. When it completely emerged from the water, the girl was surprised why the spirit had already appeared. Shouldn't the ability have manifested itself at the age of 16? Then another elf-like spirit appeared and asked if this was the child his friend was talking about. She exclaimed that, yes, the girl is simply wonderful. The boy said that she was stupid. The spirit was surprised why. She was beautiful and dazzling. Our heroine thought that if she really showed abilities, then why now? Be that as it may, it is necessary to calm down first, since mother should not notice that she has received abilities. If her father finds out about this, he will try to put her on the throne even more. So, until Aiden is announced as the heir, she must hide it. The spirit screamed that why our heroine was silent and pretended not to notice them because their gazes crossed. The boy said that she was completely stupid. Is it really not clear that she is being ignored? Sheena thought to herself that she was not ignoring, but was only pretending that she did not understand anything, since the time had not yet come, although in principle it was the same thing. The spirit exclaimed why. She even put on a flower to look more beautiful. The boy replied that it was as if others knew this. Apparently, she just didn't like her. The girl immediately had tears in her eyes, and the flower instantly slid off her head. Then she exclaimed that this simply cannot be, since this child is kind. If she calls her again, the girl will turn around. But our heroine still continued to pretend that she didn't notice anything and looked in the other direction. Sheena thought that the only right decision at the moment would be to leave as soon as possible and informed her mother about this. Then she pressed the button and said that she wanted to speed up if her mother didn't mind. The woman replied that it was good, and she agreed. The girl once again tried to report that she was there, but she was doused with water from the motor of the boat, which began to float away at high speed. The creatures did not understand why this child ran away from them at the speed of light. The boy said that apparently the spirit did something that now makes her hate her. In complete despair, the girl screamed loudly that she would improve and become better if only she would come back. Sheena continued to pretend that she didn't hear anything and mentally asked her for forgiveness. If God really exists, then doesn't he feed on people's suffering? Our heroine hopes that this is not so, but why did she have to endure such a test? Thanks to her sad mother, her heart became a little lighter, but another, even more serious problem appeared. So the boat trip had to be ended so abruptly. After meeting those creatures, the burden on our heroine's heart became even greater, since she had to treat them so unfairly. Noticing that there was something wrong with the princess, Sir Hilton asked if everything was all right with her highness. The girl replied that she was fine. Then she added that the guy didn't look very good and asked if he was really worried about something. The young man replied that no. She said that she had already said that what happened at the tea party was a misunderstanding, or maybe something else happened. The knight replied that it was nothing and that he was more worried about her. Let her have a good rest after the boat ride. The man then said that if she was sad, he could hug her. But the girl quickly went forward and said that it was necessary to go quickly. I thought to myself that when Sir Hilton would finally stop looking at her like a little child, because she was already 14 years old. Suddenly, around the corner, our heroine ran into the person in charge of the hospital, whose name was Hugh Murray. The guy greeted the princess and said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The girl exclaimed that she had not seen him for 100 years. She heard that he was sent to the territory near the Dryad Forest, so when did he manage to return? The young man replied that it was yesterday evening. Sheena clarified whether he had come to the palace for good. The guy replied that the fire had been put out, so for now, yes. The girl exclaimed that he had done an excellent job and asked if he was tired. The man replied that he was very grateful to her, since she was very caring, and all his fatigue seemed to disappear. When she asked about this, the guy immediately remembered something. The young man heard that while he was away, Her Highness fainted due to overwork. Our heroine replied that 2 whole months had passed since that incident, and now she was completely fine. In addition, recently she started playing sports, so she has become even more resilient than before. Let him just look at her muscles. The person in charge of the hospital and Sir Hilton began to peer into her arm, but did not see any muscles. Sheena replied that, okay, she will be more careful, but you don't need to look at her like that. Hugh said that if the princess was free, could she walk with him to the hospital? This is a routine check of her health, so there is no cause for concern. After all, while he was away, she could not undergo this examination. Then he turned to Sir Hilton and said that while the princess was being examined, he could also undergo an examination, since he seemed to be unwell. The young man replied that it was just due to lack of sleep. Meanwhile, Sheena was thinking about Hugh being a top-level waterbender. Moreover, he is one of the best in the entire empire. It is difficult to find a person who knows more about water spirits than he does. Plus, the guy teaches well. If you ask him anything about those creatures, he will happily answer. But Murray is also the Emperor's man. If she tells him about her abilities, he will immediately report everything to his father. She has many questions, but at the moment, she must look for answers to them on her own. So I told him that I would come over a little later. After the person in charge of the hospital left, the girl informed the knight that their plans had changed, and they were now going to the Imperial Library. The guards of the Snowdon family's secret library greeted the princess and asked if something had happened to her and if everything was okay. The girl replied that everything was fine. It was just that the stairs were much larger than she thought. But she did a great job, and there is no need to say anything. The knight said upsetly that he had offered her his help. Then she asked if there was anyone in that room. The young man replied that no. Sheena thought to herself that if someone found out that she was looking for information about spirits, it would not lead to anything good. Then she turned to Sir Hilton and asked if he could go to Joey, since she thought this would all take a little time. The guy asked that wouldn't it be better if he stayed next to her. Our heroine replied that in any case, everyone except the Imperial family was prohibited from entering there. Therefore, if he wants, he can try to go first. The knight replied that he would then wait outside, as he was worried about her return journey. Only members of the direct line of the Imperial family can enter the library, since there is a large amount of secret materials, as well as old, forbidden books. The girl doubts that she is going there for what she came for. However, there were quite a lot of water magicians in the Imperial family, and perhaps it would still be possible to find the information she needed. After some time, she took out a book about spirits, which was written by Spencer Van Whitesnow, the 15th ruler of the Snowdon Empire and a water magician. It was written there that he was leaving this knowledge so that his descendants could learn even more about the creatures. There are words that they are usually called. However, they were given by people only for convenience. In fact, these are not their real names. Being nature itself, they have no name or form, but most of them appear in the form of young fairies. Spirits are freely loyal to the one who called them. The greater the potential of that person, the stronger their attachment. On the other hand, in addition to affection, power potential is also important. This is due to the fact that the elemental abilities of creatures can only be used by magicians of average level and above. For example, water magic has a special healing power, so most of them follow the path of healers. Our heroine noted that the original Nishina was a healing magician. This means her potential is above average. Now it became clear why that little girl called so desperately for the princess. This was due to her strength and affection. Sheena decided that she needed to quickly stop thinking about it, since she was actually looking for a way to stop seeing them. While she was looking for what she needed, she read that they don't just come. If the force begins to manifest itself, the spirits that were initially nearby become visible and audible to the person. After a while, she finally reached the section on how to get rid of emerging abilities and began to read with interest what was said there. Gradually, her facial expression began to change, and tearing the book in half, she screamed that there really was no other way. This is simply outrageous. It was said there that once awakened abilities do not depend on the will of a person. They will continue to develop until they reach a certain limit. We can say that there is no way to not see spirits. If a person does not want to be a magician, then all that remains is to ignore them and live as if nothing is happening and he does not see them. Our heroine didn't understand how this was possible. Was this really the only option? This is complete nonsense. But if there are no other ways, then you will have to follow a difficult path. The next day, the girl was happy that she was finally able to run 5 laps. Then she exclaimed to Sir Russell that now, starting tomorrow, she could begin to train with the sword. The princess added enthusiastically that she was really looking forward to it, but that was a week ago, before the real classes started. The young man said that Her Highness needed to tilt her right hand more, but Sheena thought to herself that at least someone would save her. Noticing that the girl could not take the correct position on her own, the young man came up and corrected her. Then he asked for forgiveness for making her uncomfortable. Our heroine replied that this was not at all true and that everything was fine. His hands were so warm and the touch was very pleasant. The guy first said that he needed to continue, but then he saw that Sheena was shaking all over and said that she looked very tired, so it was better to rest a little now. When the guy sat down on a bed under a tree, the girl asked if it was hard for him. The young man replied that everything was fine. Our heroine noted to herself that he said these words again. Rubus doesn't look tired at all, and doesn't look like someone who came from a morning workout. Then she asked when it would be able to fight him. If you are into fencing, you should try it at least once. Although it will probably be too difficult due to the large difference in their skills and physical training. The young man replied that if she continues in the same spirit, then in 30 years, everything should work out for her, considering that she still has excellent skills. Our heroine replied that in this case, she would be happy, even if she at least trained her muscles a little. Then she took out a jar of treats and handed it into the guy's hands and told him to try it. I thought to myself that, contrary to her original goal, Sir Rubus became quite comfortable. But does he like spending time with her? In fact, she believed that she would become a hindrance for him, since he is a rather busy person. It would be great if this time became a rest for him. Then our heroine said that they would definitely fight in 30 years. After thinking a little, the young man replied that it was good. Sheena hopes that after all this time, they will still be able to smile as they do now and live a long and happy life. A few days later, our heroine noted that she had not felt so light and relaxed for a long time. Joey asked if she wasn't going to practice today. The girl replied that yes. Apparently, Sir Rubus had some work to do, so she would rest. The woman noted that this was the first time this had happened. Was he really feeling bad? The princess thought to herself that nothing like that had happened during the training, but she couldn't even find out what happened to him. You will need to ask him the next day. The maid stated that she had no other plans for today. The girl replied that everything was correct and clarified what it was. Joey said Viscount Graham's daughter sent her the book as a gift. If she has nothing else to do, then let her read, and in the meantime, she will bring her tea and dessert. The girl shouted after her that she should leave the door open, since it was difficult to open it when both hands were busy. The princess wondered what book she had sent her, so she decided to read the letter from her first. It said that the girl noticed that Her Highness was interested in what they were talking about during tea. So she sends her Madame Theresa's new novel. She hopes that at the next meeting, she will get to know her preferences better. Sheena nervously exclaimed that when was she interested in these? I would like to return this book back, but it would be rude of her. At first, our heroine thought that maybe everything was not as bad as it seemed. The cover was so beautiful and sleek, but then I read the title, Mistress of the Night, and realized that I was mistaken. After which she began to rush around the room and think where she could hide it. If she leaves a book in her bedroom or office, someone will definitely notice. A picture immediately appeared in her head of Sir Hilton falling into hysterics and shouting that their young princess simply could not read such obscenities. Such a future is probable within 99%. The girl must hide it, because if Sir Hilton sees her, he might cry. Suddenly, a knight's voice came from the side, asking why he had to do this. Out of surprise, our heroine released the book from her hands and asked when he managed to enter, since she did not even hear the doors open. The guy asked why she was so scared and why the door wasn't closed at all. Then the young man reached out to pick up the book and asked what she was reading. The princess screamed in horror that he should not touch it. He got it all wrong, and this is not her publication. But suddenly the young man turned and said that it was too early for her to spar. She's so fragile. The princess remarked about you that it seemed like she was worrying in vain and asked which passage he read. The hostess ordered Philip to start sparring. He had only learned to wield a sword a few months ago, so everyone expected him to fail. But the moment the two swords touched each other, everyone realized that he would become the best knight. The young man understands that she wants to have a one-on-one battle, but if it is Her Highness, even one blow from a wooden sword can break her bone. She has very weak muscles, and the fact that she is able to hold a sword in her hands is already a miracle. Despite this, the girl still wants to spar, so much so that she even bought a book on purpose. Our heroine shouted indignantly that everything was completely wrong, and that she should immediately return that publication back to her. Sheena then asked why a different person was the security guard this morning, if something had happened. The guy replied that he was helping evaluate the novice knights at the request of Sir Richard, who was sent to help at the scene. More precisely, he was simply conducting regular sparring between them. The girl was surprised that they really did this. Sir Russell never spoke about such a thing. Perhaps they began to do this only from today. Hilton said no. They started holding them as a tournament last week, and today was the final. Our heroine exclaimed that she knew absolutely nothing about this, and was also excused from lessons today for the first time. Hilton replied that the competition was only held in the morning. The girl noted that it turns out that Russell went to classes with her during all this. It would be nice if he told her about this. Still, if he told her about this, he would be allowed to rest a little, and she would be able to congratulate him. The knight did not understand why he should be congratulated. The princess replied that the young man would certainly take first place, and she had great faith in him. The knight asked that, of course, she was undoubtedly right, but why was she so confident in his success? The girl replied that this was her mentor, so how could it be otherwise? Then she asked how his sparring went. The young man replied that it was an amazing sight. Unlike ordinary knights, he did not use the family or conventional fencing style. It was very interesting to watch him use his own. No matter what anyone says about him, this guy is a promising kid. Sheena exclaimed that this was quite expected from her teacher. Then our heroine asked if he was hurt. Hilton replied that the difference in strength was so great that there was no chance of this. The girl replied that in that case, she could congratulate him with peace of mind. Need to go to the candy store when Joey gets back. The young man asked if Her Highness happened to like this young man. But then he took his words back and said that this was impossible. This cannot happen, and it is simply unthinkable. After some time, the cook said that the princess had worked hard, and this was a success. The girl replied that she was just helping a little. The man objected that this does not change the fact that her hands were involved in cooking. Sheena said that this is all good, of course, but what kind of buns are these? The cook replied that it seemed to him that she wanted a dessert without sugar, so he prepared them separately. Our heroine took a bite and noted that it was very tasty. They are airy, fragrant, and have an interesting texture, and it looks like there were nuts inside. Aiden should definitely like them. But then the princess remembered how her older brother said that she had obviously mixed something in there and wanted to poison him. Does his sister really think he will actually eat this? Sheena thought about what to do if she were to be rejected again. The cook asked if he should wrap the buns in the pie. Her Highness replied that only apple pie, and let her send the buns a little later. After that refusal, she was never able to meet Aiden. They lead different lifestyles, and the older brother is constantly busy. Then she thought that these were just excuses, and she still needed to gather her thoughts and go to him. Why is she behaving this way? After all, she herself decided that she would get closer to him and would see him often. The girl must muster up the courage to take the first step. You can't just avoid it. Even if it doesn't work out, you first need to face it, and then think about what to do next. When Sheena noticed her brother in the distance, she thought that it happened too quickly, so she hid. Because she unexpectedly met him, her body itself reacted this way. But the girl didn't understand why he was so cheerful and smiling. She hadn't seen him like this for a long time. Maybe something good happened during training. If this continues, she will quickly gain courage, and everything will be fine. But suddenly she saw a wound on his hand and quickly ran up and exclaimed that her brother was bleeding. The wound needs to be treated, and she will now go and call the doctor. The young man straightened his hand and told his sister not to act so rashly. She shouldn't care. Our heroine noted that she took it off and rejects it. However, if everything is left like this, it will continue to get worse and worse. Then she said that she knew very well that she had no right to worry about him. But still, she asks him to be sure to treat the wound, because he needs to train tomorrow, too. I thought to myself that I had crossed the line, and probably because of this, Aiden would hate her even more. But despite all this, she will be very angry if he leaves his wound untouched. Then she asked for forgiveness for blocking his path, and added that he should be careful. I thought to myself whether he would throw away the handkerchief or just get angry. But the young man silently went on about his business and did not remove the bandage. This meant that the older brother accepted her care. Aiden asked Oscar what his schedule was for the afternoon. The servant replied that Count Albans had been waiting for him for 30 minutes. Paying attention to his wound, the young man exclaimed that he would immediately call a doctor. But His Majesty replied that it was not necessary, and that he should call the Count to him. After some time, the owner of the county of Albans, named Blythe Albans, greeted His Highness. Every time he comes to him, he is amazed at how precious this tapestry is. They say that the Empress personally called a craftsman from her homeland to make it. As he thought, this painting is different from the others. Aiden said that he doesn't like to waste time, so he needs to get straight to the point. The man asked if the young man knew that the princess had called the daughters of families close to the emperor for a tea party. The guy replied that this was a thing of the past. Did he really decide to waste his time just for this? The count exclaimed that it was not only that. Rumor has it that Sheena developed friendly relations with the daughters of the Lauren and Orsina families, and these families have unconditional authority with the emperor. After the death of the Empress, the girl gradually increased her position. Suddenly, Aiden stopped him and said that was enough. Then he asked what he meant by this. The man said that a meeting is planned at his estate with those who support the prince, and he hopes for his presence. The guy answered briefly that he refused. If the count has finished, he can be free. He won't repeat it twice. The man shouted that they were actually offering help to His Highness. Aiden noted that it was very loud. Then he asked if the count knew how to silence a barking dog. It's very simple. You just need to cut her vocal cords. Noticing that Albans ran out of the office in horror, Oscar decided to go to the prince and ask what happened. The young man noted that it was very nice to see how he got scared and ran away with his tail between his legs. The servant asked if he really intended to continue keeping him around. a man who didn't even come to his mother's funeral. Aiden said that she had drawn certain conclusions. Prince and princess is a choice between two sides. The calculation is that taking his side will bring more benefits. Although they have the right to freely choose and count, but looking at this attitude, apparently the man dared to think that he could side with the prince. How irritated he is by a person who restrains his selfishness. Also, a gradual rapprochement with that child who is simply always watching from the sidelines. Everything without exception is annoying. Oscar noted that if His Highness continues in the same spirit, the wound will begin to fester, so he will still call a doctor. The young man threw the bandage near the bag of cookies that his sister had brought him earlier and told the servant to put it all away first. The voice of his mother sounded in his head, saying that he should become the powerful son of the empire. Whatever seat it is, the appropriate person must sit on it, so the son should not get involved with anything that could tarnish the nobility of the prince. Let him under no circumstances give that pathetic child a chance. Let him remember well that he must certainly become an emperor. After some time, our heroine learned that the very person who wounded her brother was Rubus Russell. The young man simply had a sparring session with him, so he asks for forgiveness. The girl exclaimed that she actually had no intention of telling him off. Then she added that if he didn't get hurt himself, then that's just fine. The young man objected that he had acted too arrogantly and wounded His Highness the Prince. The girl said that, after all, it was not he who asked for sparring, so in this case you shouldn't blame yourself because anything can happen. On the way to training, she met her brother, and for some reason he looks happy. Aiden excels in all his classes, but nothing compares to fencing. Sir Russell, who has more outstanding abilities than his brother, should be a good incentive for him. The original novel stated that Aiden enjoys going up against strong opponents. But did the guys meet at that time? The book said that they met after they came of age. Was it because she brought Rubus as her mentor that their meeting took place much earlier? She didn't think about it at all. Rubus from the work was near Aiden, who became the emperor and received glory and honor as the imperial sword and the youngest swordmaster. But there was no one who looked at him as a person and not a sword. Her thoughts were interrupted by the voice of a young man who asked that perhaps she was unwell, because she somehow suddenly became gloomy. Our heroine exclaimed that everything was fine. I thought to myself that it was not she who became gloomy, but his future. Once she asked if something was bothering her. If he can help in any way, then be sure to do everything in his power. Sheena thought to herself that she shouldn't have made the guy worry, since worry alone won't be able to solve the problem. So she said that she wanted to ask him something. Firstly, can she call him Rubus? After all, if he is officially knighted, then in the future she will be obliged to address him as Sir Russell for the rest of her life. So, since only now she can address him by name, she would like to call him simply Rubus, or simply Ruby, short for Rubus. When the silence dragged on, the girl said that, as she thought, it was a little burdensome, so let her forgive him. The young man exclaimed that no, she could call him that. The girl said that in this case, let him call her Sheena. The young man objected that he could not, because he was not supposed to call the princess by name. Our heroine noted to herself that the distance remained too great. She said out loud that Ruby was her mentor and first friend, but despite this, it's still impossible. The guy replied that he could not behave so impudently with Her Highness. Our heroine objected that she considered him her friend, so she prepared something, after which she took out the pie and said that it was special. This time, nothing burned and was well baked. Russell asked if she had really prepared it herself. The girl replied that no, and was only helping. Ruby replied that it was obviously a hassle anyway, so it wasn't worth it. Sheena said that since this is a congratulatory cake, she also wanted to participate in its preparation. So she congratulates him for winning first place in the fencing assessment. The young man asked how she knew about this. Our heroine replied that Sir Hilton told her. He was delighted with his abilities. Then she added that she had another gift, and if he rejected that too, she would probably just order him to call her by her name. In general, this is one ticket to fulfill a request. If he needs something or wants something, then let him just say it. The young man moved closer to her and asked if he could hold her hand in this case. Will she allow her hand to touch him? Our heroine misunderstood him and exclaimed that they did not have such a close relationship. The young man asked for forgiveness and said that it was because of her touching him last time. Apparently, this was too rude a request at the moment. The girl exclaimed in horror that when did she touch him? When did she even manage to do this? The guy replied that a few days ago, Sheena touched his hair. Then the young man bowed down and asked for forgiveness for such an impolite request. The girl exclaimed that this was absolutely not true. On the contrary, it will be a joy for her. I thought to myself that it sounded somehow strange coming from her lips. Then she began to stroke his head and asked if this would really be enough as a prize, because she could give him something more valuable. Rubus replied that this would be enough. For the first time, the young man receives such a gesture which is filled with tenderness. Now the girl understood what the problem was. As a child, she always received affection, but Russell did not. Therefore, at least from this moment, she really wants to give him kindness and tenderness, as her mother did for her. Then our heroine hugged him and said that he was her friend, and she was very proud of him. The young man thanked Her Highness. The girl laughed and said that he really had no sense of romance. At such moments, you should not call her Your Highness, but simply Sheena. Although not right now, let him at least someday call her that. If Ruby does this, she will be happy no matter the time. A week later, our heroine noted that, fortunately, her brother accepted the treatment, and everything seemed to have healed well. Since he didn't completely ignore her words, can we assume that they have become a little closer? The Emperor declared that it was necessary to begin the meeting. After the latter, a letter was sent to Wind with a proposal to increase the supply of grain products instead of part of the forest. They continue to demand the territory of the grove, but the Empire cannot accept this. Even if they are ready for all-out war, he will refuse their demand. One of the men shouted that if war could be avoided over this part of the forest, then wouldn't it be better to give in to them? The irritated young man exclaimed that he was really ignoring the principles of the Empire now. Has he forgotten about the help they received thanks to the blessed forest? The Count objected to what he was then going to do about the lack of magic stones. They cannot rely on a forest of dryads that cannot evolve. The Emperor interrupted them and said that was enough. Let the Chancellor talk about measures to ensure the safety of magic stones. The woman said that the Kingdom of Raud was offered a deal to exchange magic stones. Since the answer was yes, they will do business with them in the future. However, their missing quantity can be compensated for by spiritual stones. Their difference lies in the possibility of long-term use. Thanks to this, there will be benefits at a distance. One of the youths asked if spiritual stones were not too expensive for ordinary citizens. The Chancellor replied that he had made a correct point. Therefore, I turned to His Majesty and asked for permission to start selling spiritual stones at a reduced price and for their varieties, which are in great demand, to divide the amounts. The man replied that he allowed it. The Count stammered and said that if they did this, then war with the Wind Empire would definitely not be avoided. Another man said that they would not start fighting right now. Considering that their empire is already in the midst of civil strife over the succession, they cannot start a war outside the empire. His Majesty said that in this case, it was necessary to increase their armed forces and send an expedition. The Emperor entrusts the command of the armed forces to the prince. The young man replied that the order had been accepted. Our heroine knew that according to the content of the work, Aiden would go to war and, having won, would receive the support and trust of the people. Despite the brilliant result, the brother's path will not be easy. Although she cannot help him in any way, she wants to go with him in order to relieve his loneliness. But is there some other way? Since she cannot go to war personally because she has no talent for fencing and strategy. Then it dawned on her that she had magical talent and had water spirits. The girl was going to hide this until her brother was appointed official heir, but in the end, almost nothing changed. Aiden is her family and precious older brother, so she wants to help him with her abilities. Today, after the meeting, she will immediately go to the lake in order to talk with them and not avoid them. Meanwhile, the emperor asked if there were any other topics to discuss. One of those present answered yes. He needs to tell him something about the Rhine Kingdom delegation that will be attending the prince's birthday celebration. Judging by the urgent telegram, they will not send a representative, but the queen will come in person. Those present started talking about whether Queen Reina was not the sister of Her Majesty the Empress. Not to mention the fact that she couldn't even come to her own sister's funeral. Apparently, she is worried about the prince, who is her nephew. Our heroine knew that the woman was not really worried about him. Rebecca de Rhine, after inciting Aidan to revolt, will give it. Is she really coming in person? The woman, in any case, will not take a step away from her brother, so it is necessary to somehow prevent her, but it is not clear how. Meanwhile, the emperor said that if this was the case, then according to tradition, she should be received by the duke or someone higher. The count said that since the queen was coming to meet her nephew, it would be right to entrust the greeting of his highness to the prince. The young man replied that he would handle it just fine. Our heroine thought to herself that this should not be allowed. They cannot be allowed to be left alone. So the princess raised her hand and exclaimed that she wanted to help her older brother. The emperor asked if she was sure. The girl replied that since she and the queen were women, her help could provide her with even more attention as an honored guest. The young man began to say that he didn't need help, but our heroine interrupted him and yelled that she definitely wanted to help. Please let her be allowed. The emperor looked at her and said that it's good if she wants it so much, then he doesn't mind. Sheena felt her brother's withering gaze on her, but still could not allow Aidan to get close to the queen. After some time, the girl came to the lake and, looking around, tried to make sure that there was no one nearby. Then she sat down on her knees and, peering into the water, began to scream if there was anyone there. If Mr. Spirit is there, then let him look out, at least once. But there was no answer, and Sheena wondered why this was so. Is it really because she ignored them at the first meeting, and now they are offended by her? Perhaps she should, like last time, swim by boat to the middle of the lake. But her visit was secret, so the girl cannot do this. Or maybe the princess needs to swim herself, although the lake is deep enough. But if there is no other choice, then she will have to. Suddenly, a blue Budara appeared from the water. Our heroine wondered if they came in that color, and that she had never heard of them living in lakes. But Sheena had already seen these eyes somewhere. Why did she remember that the book said that since spirits do not have a specific form, they can also appear in the guise of animals that are characteristic of them? The creature asked if the child really didn't hate her anymore and wanted to talk to her. Our heroine exclaimed that it was just a misunderstanding. Last time, due to circumstances, she pretended not to hear or see them, and not because she didn't like them. Then she asked for forgiveness for hurting her. The water spirit exclaimed that she was very pleased. She understood everything, so everything was fine. The girl thought to herself that she had pushed her away so insensitively. But despite this, the creature accepted her without any hostility. It would be nice if she could return the favor, after which the princess asked if she could accept a gift from her as an apology. Sheena took off her ribbon and tied it to the blue otter, who was very surprised that she was giving it to her. Our heroine admired how it suited her. Laughter came from somewhere above, and a voice said what a funny look this was. The princess noted that it was the second spirit that also appeared then. The boy, meanwhile, asked that she really put it on in order to make him laugh. The otter exclaimed that no, because it was the child who said that it suited her. Our heroine objected that she really thought she looked very cute, so don't dare make fun of her. Why is he bothering her at all? The otter even somehow faded. Next time, Sheena will even bring her a waterproof tape. The elf said that based on the distinctive characteristics of spirits, there are emotions with which they assimilate well. She is a water spirit, so if she is sad, she immediately turns black. The girl asked if water spirits were sensitive to sadness. The boy replied that, in fact, water magicians are also too sensitive. Really, being a water magician, she doesn't know about this. Sheena noted to herself that despite the fact that she was killed in the original work, The reason why she had sympathy for Aiden and Rubus could be due to the influence of the water spirit. The girl objected that in fact she was not yet a magician and came there to say hello to them. The blue otter, with horror in her voice, asked that she really thought not to be a magician. Is the child going to enter into a contract with them? Our heroine replied that no, due to some circumstances. Right now, it is impossible for anyone to know about them. The book said that magicians can recognize each other. Especially high-level people sense low-level energy well. Even if Sheena becomes a mid-level mage, there is still Hugh in the palace who is an elemental mage. It is better to exclude all chances of being discovered. Therefore, our heroine said that it would be difficult to conclude a contract right now, but when the time comes, she will definitely do it. Then she asked that if they didn't mind, then let them become her friends. Her name is Nishina, but the spirits can simply call her Sheena. The elf replied that he did not like friends. Plus, water magicians were stuffy. The princess objected that she still wanted to make friends with them, so how could she contact them? The boy angrily asked that she really didn't know anything. Spirits do not have names like people. Our heroine said that she couldn't call them just spirits, because she wanted to get even closer to them. The elf thoughtfully said that as far as he remembers, people called the spirit of the willow Selic. The blue otter turned into a girl again and asked to give her a name. After all, she wants to become special for her. The princess replied that in this case, she would call her Ver, because I saw them for the first time in the spring. The water spirit exclaimed that she really liked it. Let her take care of them in the future. The elf said that if she comes often, then so be it. He will listen to her. After a while, our heroine ran along the training field and thought that usually Ruby always comes first, so today she must accompany him. Surely he will be very surprised when he learns about her visit. Around the corner, she heard angry voices shouting what kind of spawn of the winter devil this was. Let this monster rise to his feet immediately. The princess saw that somehow a crowd of boys gathered around Russell and mocked and beat him. One of the young men was freaking out and kicking boxes and said what kind of trick this monster pulled. Why exactly he took first place. Another guy said that he was strong in battle. It doesn't look like it's some kind of trick. The indignant young man asked what he really wanted to say, that his defeat was quite expected. It turns out that he recognizes that garbage. Therefore, it is considered fair that he literally took away the position of mentor to Her Highness, the princess. The young man does not overestimate himself, but the first place and position of mentor should have belonged to them. The guy muttered that indeed. After that, the guy slapped him on the back and said, "Okay, then let's go." The student asked in surprise where we were going. The young man replied that it was necessary to show this brat in his place. The guys attacked him like kites and began to say that he had no shame or conscience at all. Victory in competitions, the position of teacher of the princess, fortune constantly plays into his hands. If he got it all undeservedly, just by luck, you should know your place and retreat. Someone like him will soon be expelled anyway. The princess actually chose him simply because she doesn't understand anything. Rubus thought to himself that they were right. He is not the person who can help Her Highness. She too will soon realize this. However, for the first time he was overcome by greed. Even if it only lasts a few minutes, until the moment he is thrown away, he wants to be close to her. Therefore, when the young man said that he needed to announce his resignation, Russell replied that he was refusing. The guy got very angry, started calling him names, and slapped him in the face with all his might. The young man thought to himself that in the past he could have simply taken these blows, but now he did not want the princess to worry. Suddenly our heroine appeared and asked what was going on here. The young men were horrified and tried to greet her. The girl interrupted them and said that she didn't need it. Then she told them to explain to her what was going on there, and that they should not dare to lie. The young man replied that he was just talking with his comrades. Sheena replied that this is how knights conduct conversations. In that case, the dialogue with her must be the same. The guy exclaimed that this was not appropriate. Our heroine said that they didn't hesitate to do this to her mentor, so why couldn't they do the same to her? What audacity! From now on, humiliation towards Sir Russell will be considered by her as humiliation towards her. The crime of insulting the imperial family is strictly punishable by cutting off the tongue, so let young people watch what they say, if they don't want to lose it. After which the princess gave her hand to the apprentice knight and said that it was time for them to go. When it started to rain, the young man said that he thought she needed to hide from the rain, otherwise she would get wet to the skin. Then she noticed that her eyes were full of tears and asked if something hurt her. The girl screamed why he was like that. Why did he silently listen to those insults? Let him at least get angry. She told him that if someone was making fun of him, then he should call her, and whoever it was, she would sort it out. There is no need to take pain for granted. The young man had a strange feeling, as if something hot is pressing on the chest, but it does not cause discomfort. It would be better if she despised him just like everyone else. Then he wouldn't feel this way. His first memories begin from an old warehouse where there was not a single window. The only lamp that worked was too dim. Therefore, he constantly checked to see if it had gone out. The darkness didn't scare him. He was just afraid that if the light went out completely, the demons would drag him away, because he had the same eyes as them. So when this happened, the boy ran to the door and banged his fists, shouting if anyone was there, because the lights went out. He was forbidden to leave, but due to the fact that the ray that passed into this darkness seemed to be a thread of hope, the boy only once decided to leave the room. The sky he first looked at was so beautiful that he forgot about the most important thing, the reason why he was imprisoned. Suddenly, the voice of a man was heard, shouting that trash like him had forgotten that he couldn't enjoy the view of the sky. He told him not to get caught by him. If the boy doesn't tear out his eyes, then he shouldn't even think about walking with his head raised. Rubus was wounded by fragments from a bottle that his father threw at him, and he extended his hand to his brother, asking for help, but the guy simply turned away and said that people like him should not have been born. The brother was right. He shouldn't have been born. Someone like him doesn't deserve to live. His existence is like a nightmare. At one of the training sessions, the young man, by pure chance, ran into Russell, after which he said with disgust that he had bumped shoulders with that brat. His friend replied that he offered his condolences to his hand. The boy irritably asked if he was kidding me. The guy replied that why not share the same room with him if everything was not so bad. The young man replied that it was better to die than to live with a monster with red eyes. The young man wondered if they disappeared forever, would this whole nightmare end? Then Her Majesty Princess Sheena appeared at the training ground, accompanied by Sir Hilton. One of the guys exclaimed that she had come for some reason, perhaps to see him. The second one said what nonsense he was talking about. However, the princess is truly beautiful, which in principle was to be expected from the treasure of the empire. The young man always believed that his reality was absolutely no different from a nightmare. But maybe he had another dream. For some reason, I had the feeling that he would also be terrible. When the girl said that he had beautiful eyes, the guy thought that no noble person would say such a thing. Maybe she was just uncomfortable. Then he was given a treat and told that it was a gift from the princess herself, so he should accept it with all gratitude. Noticing the way Sir Richard looked at him, the guy thought that this was exactly how the look turned to him should be. Is there even a person in this world who would be kind to him? But when Her Majesty said that she wanted to learn fencing from him and added that she was glad to meet him, Rubus thought to himself that this was simply impossible. Why is she smiling at him? Other students started calling him even more names and getting angry about why they chose him. Russell thought to himself that the princess knew nothing about him. In that case, he must say that his existence will only be an insult to someone like her. The young man wanted to refuse her, but it was impossible to say no to such a look. When the girl thanked him, the guy thought to himself that he had not heard this even during the war, when he was saving his comrades. After some time, Sir Richard said that he assigned him to her only because Sheena herself wanted it. He understands that fencing is not suitable for a person like her. The young man answered yes. The man said that in this case, he should be very careful with her. Rubus thought to himself that this worry was unnecessary. In any case, he will be thrown out before he demonstrates his skills. He thought so initially, but in reality, everything turned out differently. The guy didn't understand why she didn't leave him. Why doesn't he despise these eyes, but instead says that they are beautiful? Why is she so kind and warm towards him? The young man could not understand the princess's train of thought. When the young man asked for forgiveness and said that he would be more focused, Sheena replied that it was okay, because there are days when you cannot concentrate well. At such moments, you need to rest. She was exactly the kind of sky that someone like him could look up to. The dream, which he considered terrible, allowed him to admire the sky. In the pitch darkness, a ray of light appeared again. Warmth seeped into long-forgotten pain. Although painful, he learned what happiness means. Instead of waiting for this terrible dream to end, the young man began to expect something else. More than anything, he wanted the girl to always smile. Even if this smile is not intended for him, everything is completely fine. The young man hopes that she will always be happy. Therefore, the young man asks her very much so that Sheena does not cry and calms down. The girl asked what he just said. Let him repeat it. The boy said hesitantly, "Sheena." The princess answered with tenderness in her voice that this really breaks all the rules. Then the boy asked where she was taking him, and what about the training? The girl shouted that she was more important now. The young man immediately asked for forgiveness. Sheena noted to herself that she had lost her temper and accidentally raised her voice at him. That's why she said it wasn't his fault. Let him forgive her for shouting. Her Highness noticed that he was trying not to look into her eyes. She truly regretted what she had just done. The real culprits were those apprentice knights. Why does it always go to the innocent Rubus? Every time my heart just skips a beat. After some time, the girl brought him to her office and told him to make himself comfortable. I thought to myself that she would really like him to rest in her room, but if her father found out about this, there would be trouble. The young man began to say that he would not dare to do this, but Sheena objected that everything was fine, so let him pass. Suddenly, Alice and Joey started running towards them, and our heroine asked what was wrong. The girls replied that they heard that Her Highness and Sir Russell had returned, so they immediately came running. The maid stated in fear that if she was here, and even at such a time, it meant that she was injured again. The princess nervously replied that no, after which she silently glanced at Rubus, whose face had been scratched off. The girls exclaimed that it was necessary to bring medicine and call Hugh, as a last resort, any other doctor. When the young man began to try to object, the girl said that today the phrase, "I'm fine," is prohibited. But the guy still said that there was no need for a doctor, since it was just a scratch and nothing hurt him. Our heroine thought that maybe he felt embarrassed because she decided to call a doctor, but this was necessary to receive good treatment. But she thinks it's too burdensome for Ruby. Then she ordered the maids to bring tea and sweets. Sheena thanked them for everything and asked if they could leave them for a while. She wants to talk to her mentor, face to face. The girls exclaimed that, of course, they would wait outside, and if they needed anything, they should just call. Then she took out a jar of ointment and said that since she had not called a doctor, she would treat him herself. The young man tried to argue that he could handle it himself, but the girl said that there was no mirror in this room. Our heroine took his opinion into account, so this time, let him listen to hers. She will try to apply the medicine painlessly. Upon completion, a delicious dessert awaits them, so it's best to get everything done as soon as possible. As Sheena applied the ointment, she said that it was necessary to tell Sir Richard about this incident. The guy said that nothing bad happened, so there was no need for it. The girl angrily said that he was not even angry, although he was subjected to such bullying by these cowards. I noted to myself that he does not use the phrase, "everything is fine," but continues to speak with the same meaning. She doesn't like the fact that Ruby doesn't value herself at all and considers herself worthless. Then she thought that he could not be forced to do anything, so she said that she would not tell Sir Richard anything, but instead he should promise her something. Let the young man promise that from now on no one will be able to humiliate, insult, or hurt him. When Russell replied that it was good, the girl said that in this case, if he violated this obligation, he would receive a truly terrible punishment. Suddenly, the doors to the office opened and Sir Hilton appeared, who began to ask where the princess was hurt again, but the picture that appeared before his eyes simply left him speechless. After some time, the knight said that he would be silent like a fish, even if the princess allowed him to be present at her lesson. The girl answered no and no again. Then she said that there was a banal misunderstanding that day. How many times had she already talked about this? Sheena simply smeared the medicine on him. He's been singing the same song for a whole week now, as much as possible. Let him come back, as he also causes inconvenience to Sir Russell. When the young man walked some distance away, Sheena thought to herself that she still had to go to her older brother after training, but she didn't have any strength. Then she noticed a flower that grew in the flower bed and was called salvia, after which I remembered something. When she was little, she told her brother that he promised to give her something tasty. How long will he sit and pick flowers? The guy asked to wait for her a little, but the girl did not let up, and said that he said about sweets that the nanny would not notice, but there were only flower beds around. The boy quickly stuffed the petals into her mouth and told her to try it. Sheena was amazed by their taste, after which Aiden said that he still needed to believe it, since it was sweet, and let her keep it a secret from her nanny. As Her Majesty sat eating the petals, she suddenly heard a voice greeting her. Seeing the young man, our heroine told him to sit down next to her. Then she abruptly put the petals into his mouth and told him that he needed to drink the juice from them. Meanwhile, she noted to herself that red really suits the young man. If only it weren't for this wound, it would have been much better. Then the princess said that his cheek was almost healed. The young man replied that it was all thanks to her Maza. Touching his face, Sheena added that it would be unpleasant if there was a scar. Let him use this medicine until the wound is completely healed. Then she noted to herself that fortunately, there were no new abrasions or scratches on him. Apparently, those people did not dare to take revenge and take revenge. The girl made the warning quite clearly, and if there is some daredevil, Ruby will not be touched again, since he made her a promise that from now on he will not take humiliation for granted, and everything will be fine with him. Bowing his head, the young man said that earlier she had said that when she stroked his head, her mood improved. If no one forbids it, he would like Her Highness to touch him. The girl exclaimed that everything was fine with her. His wound is healing, so how can it be suppressed? The young man replied that it was not because of the wound. It seemed that something else was bothering her. Sheena noted that he couldn't be fooled. Then she said that, to be honest, after training she had something important to do and she was worried. She doesn't want to cause inconvenience to others, and maybe she will make a mistake. But these thoughts haunt her. Unexpectedly, Russell said that she could handle it completely, as with the workouts, which she does well, so no worries. The girl replied that she agreed to his proposal and would pat him on the head for a while. This is the first time Ruby has proposed this to her in person, so she doesn't want to miss this chance. She's not depressed at all, so don't worry about her. Thank him very much for taking care of her. I thought to myself that Russell knew that with just one word or action, he filled her with courage. Thanks to his support, it seems that she can move mountains. After some time, the girl, surprised, asked if she really needed to learn all this. The brother answered yes. If she does this before tomorrow, then she will be at least of some use. Our heroine noted to herself that apparently he wanted her to give up in this way. How can you learn this in one day? Pay attention to the fact that she hesitated. Aiden said that if it's difficult for her and she can't, then let her say it right now. Because he does not intend to leave an assistant near him who is incapable of anything. The princess shouted that she would learn absolutely everything by tomorrow, down to the very last line. The young man said that in that case, they were done for today. Our heroine asked if she could help with anything else. The brother replied that he hoped she wasn't asking for extra work from above when she didn't know the whole story. Then the young man added that if she was not going to study this material in his office, then she should leave. The next day, the young man checked on our heroine. He asked what the size of the delegation was and the expected number of people coming. Sheena replied that the envoys numbered approximately 50 people, including Her Highness the Queen. If you add the attendants and magicians, you get about 90 people. He then asked which castle the Queen would be staying at. The girl replied that Scarlet was in the castle. Oscar was surprised to note that the princess really learned everything in such a short period of time. For this reason, she finished some things in advance, and even the prince did not expect this. After some time, the guy stated that she really had learned everything, but as he thought, it was too much for her. Sheena exclaimed that despite the difficulty, she could cope with everything. If there is something else she needs to remember, she will learn it right away. Let the young man allow her to help him. Young man. Aiden sighed heavily and said that from the next day, she would work in the office and let her be ready for anything for what she wanted. That's all. She can go. The servant added that let Her Majesty the Princess call him simply by his name in the future. Our heroine simply could not believe that she would work shoulder to shoulder with her older brother. We need to share this good news as soon as possible. So she went to the lake to see and talk with the water spirits. When the girl saw our heroine, she immediately flew up to her and began asking a bunch of questions about what was hurting her and whether she needed a doctor. Sheena didn't understand what it was and replied that she was fine. The creature exclaimed that her baby looked very bad. The girl replied that it was really that much, and it was so noticeable. Suddenly, the voice of an elf was heard, who asked why they were doing such nonsense again. When the girl turned to him, the boy exclaimed that something had really happened to her. The princess replied that nothing serious had actually happened. She just didn't sleep all night. After which, she solemnly announced that she would be able to work together with her brother. The girl exclaimed that it was really true. Their baby was magnificent. The princess thanked them for their support and said that because of this, they would not be able to see each other for some time, as she would be very busy. The water spirits were upset, but said that nothing could be done about it. Sheena thought to herself that if it weren't for Hugh and the other magicians, she would have easily carried them with her everywhere in her pocket. Otherwise, they might be noticed right away. The creature said that she understood her. In fact, she will be very bored, but when the child finishes work, she will definitely return. Our heroine replied that, of course. The girl exclaimed that in this case they support her. The boy added that she should no longer come to them in this form and should get herself in order. Sheena believed that everything would be fine. She will definitely prevent Queen Rain from getting closer to Aiden. She will be useful and will achieve improvements in their relationship with him. A few days later, the girl was shocked by the amount of work. My brother has new responsibilities, so the speed of sending documents has increased, and the amount of paperwork has not decreased. Due to several days of continuous reading, her eyes are very tired, and it is difficult to simply look through documents. I wondered if Aiden was tired. It seems that the young man never leaves his office. Then she thought she needed to stop thinking about things outside of work. We need to concentrate, because if she doesn't do anything, the number of documents will not decrease. She then began to study the Queen's menu at Scarlet's castle, and her eyes involuntarily began to close. When the girl came to her senses, it was dark around. She exclaimed that it was really night already. How long had she slept? Then our heroine noticed that there was a blanket on her shoulders. Sheena didn't understand where it came from since she didn't bring it. It was very interesting whether this was the work of Oscar or her older brother. Therefore, she carefully asked if Aiden had covered her. I thought to myself that maybe he had finally realized her sincerity. The young man replied that if she did not get enough sleep, then let her have a good rest in her room. She doesn't need to come tomorrow. Our heroine thought to herself that she would have nothing to answer if he began to scold her for an unscheduled sleep, since she was extremely careless. She said out loud that she knew it was unconscionable on her part, but let him give her another chance. This will never happen again. She should concentrate on her work. The guy sighed heavily and said that he had other things to do tomorrow, so there was no need for her help. The sister can finish the remaining tasks the day after tomorrow. The girl noted with relief that he was not kicking her out, and that tomorrow she just had a day off. Therefore, she replied that she understood everything and would finish everything the day after tomorrow. Sheena thought to herself that after a long time, she would be able to rest properly. But when will Aiden take a break? After some time, our heroine was sitting at the dinner table with her parents and yawning loudly, as she was still very sleepy. Mom asked if this work was not too hard for her. My daughter could rest today. The girl replied that everything was fine, because they had not had lunch together for so long. Moreover, she doesn't do half of what her older brother does. The emperor replied that she could not be compared with the prince, since she was too young. The girl thought to herself that Aiden was not yet an adult. She would like to say it out loud, but this will only make her brother feel worse. After all, in any case, the emperor always took her side. Sheena really hopes that her brother will never suffer again. Then our heroine thought it was better to change the subject, and turning to her mother, said that she really wanted to attend her tea party. But unfortunately, it wouldn't work out. The woman replied that there was nothing wrong with that. She will still have the opportunity to come, so for now let her focus on taking care of her health. The father noted that this is true, and let her listen to the words of her mother. Even if the daughter doesn't try very hard, she has nothing to worry about. Sheena asked what he was even talking about. The man asked that she didn't want to take part in the preparation of a big event before becoming an heiress. What he means is that it's never too late to learn something, even after becoming the rightful successor. The girl replied that she just wanted to help her brother. I thought to myself that this was all because of her carelessness. She was so absorbed in thoughts about Queen Rhine and Aiden that she didn't think at all about how she would look from the outside. Then she said that she should work harder in order to be more useful to her older brother in the future. The emperor replied that this would indeed be useful for her future. Our heroine noted to herself that he was not listening to her at all. Her mother noticed that her daughter's expression had changed greatly, so she told him not to put too much of the tires on his shoulders. The girl has her own thoughts on this matter, so shouldn't they support her? The man noted that he apparently was too hasty. However, he worries that she will feel awkward as the heir. The girl mentally thanked her mother, the Empress, for helping her a little. On the way, Sheena thought that this time her mother had diffused the situation. But how could she explain this misunderstanding to her dad? She can't talk about her concerns about Queen Rain being around Aiden all the time. The first step is to demonstrate perfect hospitality. When the queen is not near her father, the girl will have to try to talk to him. Then she thought that why not see Rubus and asked Sir Hilton when the apprentice knights began their break. The young man replied gloomily that they had no break. The girl exclaimed that there was no need to lie to her. The young man shouted that if she herself knew everything, then why was she asking? In this case, she especially shouldn't go there. Our heroine thought to herself how stubborn he is. She can go there herself, but if the knight is offended, he will raise hell with the whole castle. Then she thought about the fact that, as it turned out, she had nowhere else to go. Apparently, we will have to return to the castle. Then she remembered that Hugh asked her to come to the hospital as soon as she had a free moment. It dawned on her that she had promised him, but she still couldn't find the time for it. Therefore, she will undergo an examination and at the same time take some good medicine for fatigue in order to bring it to her older brother. The idea is just perfect. Then she told Sir Hilton that they were going to the hospital. When he saw her, the man exclaimed that she had finally come. The girl asked for forgiveness for promising to look at him, but it still didn't work out. Hugh replied that it was okay, as he was well aware that she was very busy. Then he asked where Sir Hilton was. The girl replied that he was waiting at the door. During the inspection of the imperial family, outsiders are prohibited from being present. The water mage said that in this case we can proceed. after which a water spirit appeared on his hand. Our heroine noted to herself that previously only a silhouette was visible. Perhaps she sees the appearance of the spirits completely due to the awakening of her powers. Sheena noted to herself that she seemed more experienced compared to Ware. You need to try not to meet her gaze, but what to do if she suddenly notices her powers. The man then asked Nana to check on the princess and tell her if there was anything wrong with her. After a while, the creature began to whisper something in his ear, and Hugh asked if she was sure of this. Our heroine asked in fear if something had happened. The doctor responded by asking whether Her Highness had accidentally come into contact with water spirits recently. Sheena replied that this was all because of preparations for receiving a delegation from the Kingdom of Rhine. Some problems arose, and she met with the wind mages. But how did he understand this? Is there really something wrong? Smiling, Hugh replied that now it was clear why their aura was felt. There are many spirits living near the gate. Perhaps that is why Nana felt a familiar energy. Fortunately, her health is fine. Our heroine noted to herself that she needed to be more careful, and henceforth she should not see Ware before meeting Hugh. The doctor said that no problems were found, but due to accumulated fatigue, she should take a good rest. It dawned on Sheena that she should find out about the cure for fatigue. That's why she said she wanted to ask something. The man replied that he was worried, but that she was also unwell. Our heroine asked what it also means. Is someone really sick? The water mage explained that His Highness the Prince had a very high fever at dawn. He spent a week of sleepless nights. He was told that he needed to take a break, but he was too stubborn and replied that he had to finish the work. Our heroine said that he is still working, but Hugh interrupted her and said no. Oscar begged him with tears in his eyes, so now the young man is in bed. The girl asked what if he was healed with the help of the power of spirits. The man replied that Her Highness knows that she shouldn't do that. Sheena knew that if a high-ranking water mage like Hugh used magic on Aiden, he would immediately recover. But if you get used to treatment with magic, then the original immunity may weaken. For this reason, recovery is used only in critical situations. In fact, you can use magic to dial, but he will not accept this help. Because he grew up watching his mother, the Empress's long illness, treatment became something of a horror for him. But it will still be good if she does at least something for the recovery of her older brother. Hugh said that he couldn't cure him with magic, but he could give him medicine that would ease his suffering. Unfortunately, he was unable to get to His Highness due to the ban on visiting. But there was just a person who could bypass this order. Then he handed her a small bottle and asked for forgiveness for daring to give her an assignment. After some time, Sheena was already looking around her brother's room. The decor was exactly the same as her bedroom, but this place is a completely different world. Is this really how loneliness feels when it takes on the image of space? Suddenly, Aiden's voice was heard, asking who allowed her to enter. The girl exclaimed worriedly if everything was okay with him. The young man repeated the question of who allowed her to come in. Our heroine replied that she brought him medicine from the doctor. Her answer was that he didn't need the medicine. They needed her help. He didn't need her support, so let him go away. His words are some kind of joke to her or something. The young man said that the younger sister entered, ignoring his order. Did he understand correctly? After which, the young man coughed, and our heroine did not pay attention to everything he said and declared that he was sick, which meant that everyone's work was now stagnant. Then she handed him a bottle of medicine and added that unnecessary damage was undesirable, so it was only helping. The guy snatched the drug from her hands and, after taking a sip, told her to now leave his bedroom. When Sheena stepped out into the hallway, Oscar began to have a panic attack. The young man wailed as the state of His Highness. Does he take his medications on time? Didn't he say he needed something? Now, everything is clear. The girl violated the order, which means he will be a walking corpse. The girl calmed him down and said that she was the one who violated the order, so she would take full responsibility upon herself. Sir Hilton said that if the princess had finished, she should allow him to escort her to the palace. The girl replied that no, there was still one thing left. Have Oscar prepare a clean towel and a bowl of ice water. The servant muttered that, did Her Highness really want to look after the prince herself? Our heroine replied that this is exactly the case. She felt guilty towards Oscar, but could not leave Aiden alone. And such a situation obviously will not suit the brother, however. If there is no one around, when a person lived with you and was sick, then this is the saddest thing. If they endure the burning together, she hopes that she can brighten up his loneliness. One day, when Aiden was little, he became very ill. His mother asked the doctor what was wrong with him. The young man replied that the prince had a fever from overwork. You will need at least 4 days of rest. The woman screamed what it all meant. Soon there will be a banquet in honor of His Majesty's birthday. The boy should be the main character of this day, so let him cure him with the help of perfume. The doctor replied that if their power was abused, then His Highness's immunity would be greatly weakened. He can't have complications because of this, so nothing can be done. When the doctor left, the boy turned to his mother and said that he was in great pain. What should he do? The woman replied that a noble man never relies on the help of others. The most important thing is that the emperor should never show his pain. Pain is a gap. Such insignificant little things will not allow him to breathe deeply. In order to become a true monarch, he must get rid of all his weaknesses. The boy put his hand on his mother's hand and said that he was still in a lot of pain right now and asked if she could stay with him for a while. The woman pulled back her hand and asked if the prince felt hostility towards his callous mother. But he must understand her. Her life is not at all sweet. Her mother sold her like some kind of cattle. The man who is her husband looks at her as if she were some kind of bug. Plus, a woman appeared who took away her chance for a happy life. She can't stand everyone. Even if he tears them apart with his own hands, he still wants to stab their dead bodies. We must make them all kneel before her. No one else can do this except the prince. Who else will free her from all these insults? If the boy continues to say such insignificant things, then what will happen to her? Aiden shouted that he had made a big mistake and was very guilty. He will become even better than now. Let mother believe him. The woman calmed down and said that it was good. When the sun wins, let him make sure that their corpses lie under his mother's feet. Even if he tramples her too, then let him remain the only one at the top. Because the throne can only be in the hands of one. The young man always followed his mother's words. He pretended that everything was fine, despite his illness. Gritting his teeth, the guy endured the pain hundreds of times as long as possible. Spending night after night alone, I reminded myself that everything would pass, and after the darkness the sun would rise. The young man is used to enduring, giving up hope. But why does my sister always come and smile so sweetly? After some time, the young man asked Oscar if the princess had returned to her place. The servant replied that yes. Her Highness said that she would return to the office after lunch, and also asked to tell him something. Looking at the strange food on the table, the young man asked what it was. Oscar replied that it was rice porridge with an egg. The princess said that he first needed to eat, and then take his medicine. My wife asked me to tell him that now if he skips 3 meals or doesn't sleep all night, she simply won't let him into her own office. The young man began to get angry that how dare she manage his castle, but the servant immediately said that the princess was just very worried about him. Since the prince is a key figure, if he is ill, then everyone's work will begin to stagnate. Therefore, it will be good if Aiden eats, and if not, then, as a last resort, he will tell the princess that the young man did it. But suddenly he saw how the young man began to eat with appetite. Then he said that it was better than annoying the princess, so he would just eat. A few days later, the day of the delegation's arrival finally arrived. The closer the date of the visit got, the more worries appeared. But the girl took good care of Aiden, so he no longer fell from fatigue. In addition, his facial expression became lighter. The only thing was that he became even colder and ruder to her than before. Nothing can be done about it, because in his opinion, with her concern, she only greatly disturbed him. But she still doesn't regret anything. It's more important now to protect Aiden. The Queen of the State of the Rhine, Her Highness Rebecca de Rhine, entered the room. Our heroine thought to herself that it was from this man that she must save her brother. The emperor exclaimed that she had come a long way for this meeting. The woman replied that she was in this palace for the first time since Gione's wedding. The empress said that her path must not have been easy, but she still made it out safely, and it was wonderful. Then she introduced herself and said that her name was Melissa Whitesnow. The queen replied that it was thanks to them that she arrived at the palace in comfort. After which she shook her hand and said that her name was Rebecca de Rhine, and it was very nice to meet you. Our heroine noted to herself that, whatever one may say, her mother is the person who took away her sister's place. But why does she look so friendly? Compared to Her Majesty the Empress, there is not that bone-chilling feeling. It gives a softer and warmer impression, to such an extent that it is difficult to imagine that she is capable of betraying Aiden. Still, you can't judge a book by its cover, because Sheena knows very well what trick she can pull. The woman said she felt embarrassed to arrive empty-handed, so she brought small gifts with her. The emperor said that now they felt a little awkward and should give something back in return. The queen replied that they should simply be accepted as a thank you for the invitation. Plus, His Highness's birthday is coming up very soon, and she's just getting there, so she wanted to cook at least something. The young man is her only blood relative and family. Until now, she could not take care of him. The girl, observing all this, noted that after such words, there was nothing to suspect her for now. But she came to the palace in order to push Aiden where she needed to go. Meanwhile, the queen came closer to her brother and said that she was glad to meet him. Then she added that she was the sister of His Highness's mother, and her name was Rebecca de Rhine. The young man shook her hand and introduced himself as Aiden Heinrich Whitesnow. Let the woman feel at home. Rebecca said that His Highness is her sister's son, so it is equivalent to him being her child too. In fact, the young man had grown much more than she had imagined. Our heroine did not understand what was happening. She had an unpleasant feeling, as if the queen was valuing Aiden like some kind of food. She can't just watch this. Therefore, she stepped forward and greeted Queen Rain, saying that her name was Nishina Aaron Whitesnow. Rebecca said that she had heard rumors that the Snow family's blood was strong, but she didn't think it was that strong. She and the prince are very similar. The girl was happy at first, but then realized that she needed to come to her senses and not just smile. From now on, this line cannot be crossed. When the queen said that she first wanted to lay flowers on Giona, the emperor replied that she must have been tired during this long journey, so he asked how about resting today, and tomorrow the prince would take her to the temple. The woman replied that it would be even better, and that this option suited her best. Sheena thought to herself that she shouldn't let Aiden and Rebecca be near each other alone. On the way, Rebecca asked the prince if he had accidentally come up with the new policy of granaries in the south of Snow. She had heard a lot about what an outstanding person Aiden was, but now it seems to her that the rumors underestimate him. The young man said that she praised him too much. The woman replied that she didn't think so because she didn't waste words. Our heroine was angry to herself that why was she pretending to be so friendly? If these two go to the grave tomorrow, will she behave exactly the same as now? The girl needs to go with them, but the daughter of the second empress cannot appear at the grave of the first. Nothing can be done about it. Even now, being next to them, she felt that the distance between them was gradually and unobtrusively closing. Therefore, she intervened in their conversation and asked what they were talking about so cheerfully. The woman replied that they were talking about the prince's abilities. Aiden began to incinerate her with his gaze. The queen added that during the time that they had not seen each other, the young man had done a lot. She feels bad that she, being his only relative, was so inattentive to him. Our heroine exclaimed, "What does it mean to be the only one? Because her brother has her, his younger sister. Plus, he also has excellent abilities, because it's not for nothing that his teachers praise him. They say that Aiden is like a precious stone that is characteristic of his month of birth, namely, peridot. This gemstone shines brightly even in pitch darkness. In the past, it was used as a word referring to the son, that is, the emperor. If you study royal disciplines well, it is impossible not to know about it. Rebecca hopes that Aiden will be isolated from everyone in the imperial castle, but our heroine will not allow this. Queen Rain noted that the brother and sister seemed to have a very close relationship. The young man was about to say that this was not at all true, but the girl interrupted him and exclaimed that, of course, they were each other's family. I thought to myself that she was hinting that the woman was not Aiden's only blood relative. Rebecca replied that it was very nice. Such a warm relationship between them makes her very happy. After some time, the servant brought her to the room where she would live for some time. Then she said that the prince had been preparing it for a long time, so the rest turned out truly magnificent. Smiling sweetly, the woman said that she would call her if she needed anything, but now let her go about her business. After the maid left, the queen asked what urgent business the young man had with her, which he spoke about earlier. The man told Her Highness that it would be about a letter from the Wind Empire. Then he added that he was handed over right before crossing the border. The woman noted that it seemed like something urgent. It said that it was necessary to plant the seeds properly in order to be able to reap the fruits in the future. Then she threw out the letter and told her to burn it. Representatives from the Wind Empire have said this from the very beginning. It was wild and ignorant of them. They wrote to her that the bloodlines of the White Snow imperial family would disappear. If she cooperates with them, they will be generous and give up that half of the land where the blood of her nephew will be shed. It is too shameful to receive this kind of letter when you are the ruler of a country. But still, trembling from the insult, she really wanted to get that land. She didn't know what to do. They wrote that it was necessary to ensure that young Snow killed his father with his own hands. Let a woman sow the seeds of civil war in the empire. After a while, the servant asked her what her first impression of the prince was. Rebecca replied that he was better than she expected, so much so that it will be very difficult for her to act. But no matter how wonderful Aiden is, the emperor openly shows his love and pays attention only to the princess. The man said that if things were left as they were, the prince would be forced out of the succession battle. The queen replied that she also thought so. Rebecca thoughtfully said that all they needed to do was encourage him to rebel. Not many countries want the Wind Empire to overtake them. For this reason, if war breaks out between the two powers, neighboring countries will support the Snow Empire, with which they are on friendly terms. But if they destroy themselves on their own, then it is safe to say that this land belongs to the Rhine. In this case, shouldn't you treat the hunting dog kindly, meaning the prince? The queen is on Aiden's side, and he can trust her. If she says so, then he will do anything for her. The man asked what she would do with him after all the necessary manipulations were completed. Would she really give him back to Windu? When the ambiguous silence dragged on, the servant asked whether she really considered the prince as her successor. Rebecca replied that this was very good. The servant objected that she had not already appointed her relative as the heir. The woman replied that everything was exactly like that, but the prince's abilities were on a different level. Less than a few hours after they met, she already understood this. He has the qualities of a great emperor. The man asked if he would follow the country that betrayed his homeland. Rebecca replied that hatred sends people to hell and makes them worse than the devil. The servant said that he was very surprised that the prince and princess had a good relationship, since there were completely different rumors. In addition, Sheena is wary of her. Maybe she knows something. Grinning, the queen replied that, like a child, he could guess what was unknown even to the emperor of this power. Although they say that children's insight is very accurate, opportunity, she felt something unpleasant. Moreover, the prince himself is a problem. His vigilance is commendable, but it complicates things too much. The man asked if she had any plan. The woman replied that if you go to hell, you will certainly grab hold of everything, even if it is a bloody hand. Therefore, there is no need for a plan. It is only necessary to break him so much that he cannot even think about being alert. Then her hand will be considered a life preserver. Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking that Aiden was unhappy from the very moment she started talking about chrysolite. Then the brother asked what kind of nonsense she was talking about recently. Let him in the future refrain from making useless speeches before the queen. The girl objected that this was true, but then said that she would be quieter than water, below the grass, while demonstrating that she would keep her mouth shut. Looking after her brother, she thought to herself that he would really just leave. But everything is still ahead. For the sake of his protection, the sister will do everything in her power. That same evening, our heroine ordered Joey and Alice to bring all the cosmetics they had. I thought to myself that in order to counter Queen Rebecca's maturity, she needed to look more menacing. So she told the maids to give her very bright makeup for tonight's dinner. The girls asked in surprise why, since Her Highness was more suited to light makeup. The princess began to scream hysterically for them to do what she asked and not argue. After some time, the maids finished their work and told the girl to look at herself in the mirror, but suddenly it cracked. Joey exclaimed that this was a very bad sign. Alice thoughtfully asked that the mirror was really frightened by the sight of the princess and broke, but it couldn't have such abilities. Our heroine said that this is not the maturity she wanted, so let them wipe off this makeup. The girl thought to herself that if a strong and stern appearance did not suit her, then she needed to change tactics. Our heroine's new tactic was that it was impossible to spit in a smiling, friendly face. But there was one thing. Because of the preparation for the banquet, she ate the same thing every day, so she was already sick from just the smell. Mother asked if something hurt her. It seems like she's been overworking herself lately. Maybe she should call a doctor. The girl nervously replied that no, she was fine. Then she began to eat and lament that it was very tasty and let her father and mother just try it. They replied that if something was wrong, they should immediately warn them. Listening to this whole sweet, friendly conversation, the queen noted that the young man did not like it, and he was starting to get angry. Then the emperor turned to Rebecca and asked for forgiveness, because it seemed to them that his daughter was unwell. They seemed to have settled on the idea that a messenger must now be sent from their side. The woman replied that everything was correct. Then she asked how about the prince coming to visit them. After all, this is his mother's homeland, and she believes that he will learn a lot of interesting things. She wants to show him her favorite places. The empress adored the golden reed forest, and the young man would obviously be interested in looking at it. Our heroine admired such a forest and said that she also really wanted to go and see it. She saw him in a book and heard that he was incredibly beautiful. The queen objected that this proposal was addressed only to the prince, but the girl exclaimed that she really couldn't. She really wanted to visit this place. Rebecca replied that of course not. Just because the princess is so young, it's better to let a little more time pass. Sheena interrupted her and exclaimed that if she went with her brother, she would have nothing to worry about. Then our heroine said that because of his minority, it's still impossible to leave at the moment. There are 2 whole years left before the ceremony. Will she invite them then? They will definitely come with their brother. The queen had no choice but to fake a sweet smile and say, which is obligatory. The girl noted to herself that this was an ideal defense. From a diplomatic point of view, this is rudeness, but after all, she is still a child, and if she ends the conversation with a childish prank, then she will not be able to do anything. You can't get angry over something like that. Then a maid appeared in the dining room and began serving desserts. Our heroine noted to herself that it was very timely. Although this is a dessert for the Rhine Kingdom's reception, she chose the flavor with the hope that Aiden would like it. It was a sour lemon sorbet. The young man did not like much sweets. Noting that her older brother was eating it better than she thought, Sheena decided to try it too. Rebecca said that the prince eats sour very well and is very similar to Gio, Her Majesty the Empress. His mother also loved lemon-flavored desserts. Queen Rain knows about Aiden's only weakness, Gione. Therefore, in order for him to rely on her, she endlessly touches open wounds. Our heroine was not bothered by her attempts to use her brother to start a rebellion. However, she was afraid that some of the woman's words might hurt him. After a while, Rebecca said that she had to pay tribute to the Empress, but she was interested in asking one question in her capacity as her sister. Did the Empress ever tell her son about her? The young man replied that no. The aunt replied that apparently it was because they were not on the best terms. In fact, this was not the only reason. Their head of state could not be called heartless, but there was certainly no regret. To please the empire, the nobles called for the princesses to be literally sold. Rebecca overheard a meeting discussing how to send a second princess and form a political alliance with the White Snow Empire. After all, if the relationship gradually deteriorates, then they can get into a difficult situation. The weak king could not refuse to sell his own daughter. Looking at him, the woman learned a lesson. Weakness equates to imperfection. If you have the strength, you can avoid this. Therefore, it was necessary to trample on my own blood, my own sister. This time, everything is exactly the same. This is just the process of gaining the throne and power of the empire. The queen said that if there was such a chance, she would very much like to hear a little about Jian. Even if it's too late for whatever happens, Rebecca is his family. Let him remember that she will always be on his side. Then she thought that maybe today's rain was her sister's cry filled with bitterness from resentment. A few days later, Sheena was indignant at Ruby that it really was all about her being a princess. In this case, the girl will refuse this status. The guy replied that problems are not solved that way. Let him definitely think it over again. Giving up your status as a member of the imperial family just because you go outside the castle is somehow not very good. You cannot do it this way. Our heroine asked if, in that case, she would have to go alone. Russell replied that it was even worse. The guy told Her Highness that it was dangerous to wander outside the castle alone. The girl asked if monsters really lived there. The young man replied that this is just a place where people live. Ordinary life for them can become a threat to it. Then the young man added that, therefore, please reconsider his desire to leave the palace grounds. Our heroine replied that it was not a matter of going to a dangerous place, and certainly not mindless curiosity and adventure. Therefore, if you leave the castle, you need a partner, and that's why she asks for one. I thought to myself that she was persuading him not only because of the accompaniment. Training and the gym are the only places he sees, so she wants to take him out into the world. Then she said that if she had to gain some experience, she wanted to share it with him. So wouldn't he mind? The young man replied that, of course not. How could that be possible? The girl replied that if he still went with her, then she would go and change clothes, and after a while they would meet in the same place. When our heroine saw the young man in a new look, she exclaimed that he was simply an incredible cutie. Sir Hilton asked if the clothes were too big. He brought the one he wore when he was the same age as Russell. Then she thoughtfully said that it needed to be changed to a slightly smaller one. Our heroine said that she was not that great. If he goes after another, they will simply waste time. Plus, by the time he returns, they can already leave. If it weren't for the night, she wouldn't have been able to go out anywhere. The man exclaimed in horror that they could not go together. The girl believes that unforeseen circumstances should not happen, but if this happens, then Ruby will take full responsibility on herself anyway. Sir Hilton then asked if Her Majesty had taken the artifacts. The princess replied that, of course. The young man said that then let them use them for now, and in the meantime he would prepare the carriage. The apprentice knight carefully asked what it was. Sheena explained that this artifact can change the hair and eye color of the person who uses it. It even has a silhouette blur effect. So, as soon as members of the imperial family have black hair and blue eyes, they use these artifacts when they go somewhere anonymously. Because if you appear in public without them, they will be recognized immediately. Why did she add that she has one for him too? Even though she thinks his eye color is beautiful, it may be necessary for a comfortable time. The guy said that he had no right to wear things from the imperial family. The girl replied that she hoped that he would be comfortable. The young man said that he didn't really want to change the color of his eyes because she called them beautiful. Our heroine was very pleased to hear such an answer, so she threw a cape over him and told him to be careful with her. Let only she be able to look at his beauty while walking. After some time, the princess said that she shouldn't be called that in public. At the moment, her name is Aya. The young man said that Aya could already let go of his hand. The girl objected that she told him that artifacts have the ability to dispel presence, so if she lets go of her hand, she might get lost. The guy asked how Sir Hilton was doing in this case. The princess explained that whoever reached a certain level should be fine. The knight shouted from afar that they had already gone too far from him. Sooner or later, Rubus will also be able to reach this level, but for now, she would like to create good memories with him. The young man replied that, of course, if she so wishes. Sheena thought to herself that why is he so handsome and brave today? Then she exclaimed that she needed to go get something to eat. She thought to herself again that Ruby was having a bad effect on her heart. It won't last at this rate. Suddenly, a man appeared in front of them, carrying a huge log on his shoulder. Someone called him, and he began to turn around with it so that it was about to hit their heads. But they were abruptly pulled back by some young man and told the kids to watch where they were going. Our heroine noted to herself that this man's eyes looked like those of a predator. Then it dawned on her that she was sitting on Rubus's lap, and jumping sharply, exclaimed that he would forgive her. But she could not maintain her balance and began to fall. But the same young man grabbed her hand before so that she would not struggle. Sir Hilton's knife immediately appeared near his throat and told him to immediately release the girl. Then he hissed who he even was. The young man replied that he did not expect his kind gesture to be reciprocated in such a way. If she had been properly accompanied, this would not have happened. Doesn't he think so? After which the young man added that there was no point in dealing with them and began to walk away. When he had walked away, his servant said that it would be problematic if the Lord Prince acted so carelessly in the heart of an enemy country. The guy asked what these big words were. Does he really think it's normal to call him a prince in such circumstances? The man asked Mr. Cassile for forgiveness. His Highness said that they could not delay any longer. There's not much time left before that psycho meets Snow. They must find them at least an hour earlier. Meanwhile, Russell asked for forgiveness that she almost got hurt, and on top of that, some stranger was rude to her. It was all his fault. The girl replied that everything was not like that at all. Even though that man was a rude person, he still helped them. Hilton said he was inattentive and endangered Miss Aya. Even if she reprimands him, he understands the reason why this will happen. Sheena exclaimed that everything was fine. She also bears responsibility because she was the first to run away. The man said that this was not true at all. Apparently today is not their day, and they should return to the palace. It would be better if they had more guards next time. The girl thought to herself that the reason she risked going out was to buy a birthday present for Aiden. Queen Rebecca is going to gain his trust by giving him some special thing. Therefore, the sister must prevent this by preparing a much better gift. Of course, if he doesn't reject him. Because before this, he refused to take any gifts from her. But what to do if this continues? Either way, she can't give up. Therefore, our heroine objected that she had not finished her business yet. That person didn't want to harm her. This time, she will be next to them and very close. Let them take her hands. While Sheena was dragging them along, a voice came from somewhere on the side and said that the girl who was running with two men should come up and look at the goods. There were various hair ornaments on display that were very sparkling. Our heroine thought to herself that, of course, this is a treat, but this is not something you can give to your older brother. Or maybe it will suit a young man after all. But she immediately imagined his withering look and the question that she really wanted to die. Meanwhile, the seller turned to Rubus and said that his sister seemed to be in two minds. So how about helping her choose? Then he pointed his finger at Sir Hilton and said that this man must be their father or uncle. Our heroine exclaimed that everything was right. She was his sister, and his uncle was nearby. Sir Hilton could not utter a word with joy. The merchant replied that, looking at how they walked and held hands, everything became clear. Apparently, they have a very good relationship. But why did her brother put these rags on his head in such hot weather? Sheena replied that her brother was simply allergic to the sun. The young man cautiously turned to Her Highness and said that he would soon be 15 years old. Sheena asked if he said this because of her words about him being her little brother. Perhaps then she should just call him brother. Russell immediately blushed and said that he didn't mean it at all. Our heroine noted to herself that apparently he was very surprised. But such a cutie. Sheena then looked at what the seller handed her in his hand and asked what kind of string it was. The man replied that it was a wish bracelet and he made it himself. If you wear it until it breaks, your wish will definitely come true. Would she like to buy one thing for her little brother? The girl noted to herself that this all sounded like an ordinary ploy to sell goods, but still asked Rubus if he had a desire. When the guy began to answer that he didn't deserve something like that, the girl interrupted him and said that they had made a promise to each other, namely to make sure that there were no people who humiliated him or made him suffer. If he says something like that again, he will come to training with such a hairpin on his head. The young man got goosebumps. She noted to herself that it would suit him no less than Aiden. The seller asked again if they would take the bracelet. The brother and sister are already very beautiful, so if they buy it now, he will sell it at a very attractive price. Sheena said that she would take it, after which she turned to Rubus, who began to say that he really did not have any desires. The girl said that even if it's not right now, it may appear later, so let her give her hand. When such a wish appears, he will definitely make it, and she really believes that it will come true. In the end, they also bought hairpins, and our heroine exclaimed that the day was hot, so she needed to rest a little and then return to what she started, after which she remembered the words of Mrs. Lauren, who advised her to visit a sweet shop, and it should be somewhere very nearby. When they entered this room, a bunch of girls immediately began to greet the princesses and say that they were very beautiful and had pretty hairpins. Her Highness was horrified by this all-consuming pink aura. After some time, Sheena asked Sir Hilton if he was okay. The man had the words of those girls spinning in his head that he was a very cute princess with a hair clip and was thinking about what kind of princess he was. Our heroine noted that apparently he was fine, but the situation that happened earlier was just a shock for him. Then our heroine looked out the window and said that it seemed that the place opposite looked good. So how about we rest there for a while and come back? The man shouted that this was impossible. Accompanying her is a very big responsibility for him. Her Highness handed him a menu and told him to try ordering at this place. The more the knight read the titles, the worse he felt. There was a choice of names such as Your Favorite Sweet Marshmallows, Rainbow Sherbet the Color of Dreams that Blooms from Within, Love Pin with Ice, and so on. So Sheena said that stop being stubborn. In any case, it's nearby and everything can be seen through the window. After the voice of the girl was heard, who asked if Princess Hilton was ready to place an order, the man was blown away by the wind, and he immediately found himself in the establishment opposite. Our heroine, meanwhile, told Rubus that they also need to order something for themselves. After a while, the girl told Russell not to be shy and to start eating so that she wouldn't have to spoon-feed him. When she tried a piece herself, she noted that it was simply incredibly delicious. Desserts that use lemon, although not sweet, are still very tasty. Maybe we should change Aiden's birthday cake to lemon. But then she remembered the Queen's words that his mother also loved desserts with lemon, and thought that she could start talking about Her Majesty the Empress again. After which the girl decided that she wasn't even thinking about that right now, since she hadn't even prepared a gift for her older brother yet. So what kind of cake could we be talking about? Noticing that the princess was thinking about something, the young man asked if something was bothering her. The girl sharply blurted out the word, "No." The young man answered upsetly that if it's difficult for her to talk about it, then she doesn't have to tell him about it in detail. Everything is fine. At least he hopes it's not hard for her. Sheena didn't understand why she felt so hot. The girl felt herself blush, but replied that there was nothing she couldn't tell him. In fact, she is scratching her head over the gift. It was because of this that she organized their foray into the village today, all for Aiden's birthday present. She thought that she would go out and find it so easily, but now she doesn't know what to do. Then she asked what he liked. She believes that things that might appeal to a knight will also appeal to her older brother. Then she began to think that it could be a sword or equipment for protection, but armor was somehow too predictable. The young man replied that any gift from her would be good. Even if it is not a thing, everything it gives will be a joy. Our heroine thought to herself that Ruby knew that his every word was a great joy for her. His sincerity gives her great courage. Therefore, she said out loud that thanks to him, it seems, she came up with a gift for her older brother. After a while, Sir Hilton asked if they had finished their business. The girl replied that, and since it was already getting dark, it was necessary to go back. If she's late, Joey and Alice will be worried. The knight replied that in that case, he would bring the carriage now, so let them wait a little. Our heroine noted that her legs hurt terribly from this walk, and she was very tired. Ruby said she did a great job. Sheena objected that it was not she, but he. It is very difficult to walk in a hood in such hot weather. If not for the young man, she would not have been able to choose a gift. Because he helped her realize the most important thing, namely, wishing happiness to the one who accepts the gift. The girl thought that if she prepared a gift better than the Queen's, she could distance her from Aiden. However, this was not the truth. Her goal is a happy future for her brother and all of them. If she can convey to him that she only wants him to be happy, then that will be enough. She then thanked Ruby and said that she only remembered it because he accepted her gift with all his heart. The young man replied that in fact it was he who should thank her for inviting him with her. Suddenly, some distraught woman began to rush towards the princess, screaming that their savior had finally come and that she would please help them. Our heroine said that she was a little scared, but everything was fine. She's probably a sick person, so it's better to leave her. The woman screamed to be let go, because how could such an insignificant insect even dare to touch her? He was destined by fate that his wings would be torn off. Why does such a person receive salvation? And why does the girl not want to have mercy on her? Isn't self-sacrifice considered a noble act? Let the young saint, by all means, have mercy on her. Nishina, who was called a saint and met her death like an insect. Rubus. These are all the words she read in the original novel. Does this old woman really know something? Her Highness came closer to her and asked who she was and what she was talking about. The old woman shouted that there was no need to worry about this bug. Let her give up this matter. In any case, he is destined to die, tearing his wings and falling to the ground. The young man will be buried in the snow and disappear without a trace, dying a miserable death. The girl asked if she was counting on salvation. The old woman answered yes. Let her leave this dying man and take care of her. Our heroine answered briefly, no. She has nothing to give to someone who dared to speak so unceremoniously about her man. Then she took the young man by the hand and said that they had to go. The guy, in turn, asked if she was okay. The girl replied that she did, and asked the same thing in return. The old woman became completely furious that she had behaved this way to her because of this young man and began to quickly run towards her Highness. Suddenly, the same young man who saved them not so long ago appeared and said that they needed to change the method of escorting them. Our heroine screamed that there was no need to go to that extent, so please let her go. The woman stated that the problem was not only with the escort, but also with the hostess. Sheena didn't understand what she was saying. The old woman looked her straight in the eyes and said that she was stupid. Does the girl really think there is an ending where everyone is happy? The young man asked how long they were going to continue listening to these madwoman's ravings. Ruby added that it was better for her to avoid such places. Our heroine replied that he was right. The woman laughed loudly and shouted after her that the saint, whom she had found with difficulty, actually turned out to be a child who follows illusions. Even in fairy tales, the story ends with the death of the witch. The guy ordered her to stop muttering. Suddenly his servant appeared, pierced the old woman's body with a sword right through, and asked if he should deal with those children. The guy replied, no. Their business in Snowdon is over, so they need to go back. The young man noted to himself that that girl was very strange. Compared to the fact that she was dressed expensively, she easily apologizes and worries about who could have harmed her. She loves people, or simply does not know the truth of the world. In any case, they will not see each other again. Meanwhile, Rubus said that right in front of her was a place where they rent carriages. Sir Hilton is waiting inside. The girl was thinking about what that old woman meant. She doesn't think it was just the ravings of a madwoman. Her words couldn't get out of her head. The guy carefully asked if she was okay. Our heroine replied that she was just a little scared because of what happened on the first day of her foray into the village. You could say it's nothing. Unexpectedly, the always reserved young man said that, "Damn that old woman." Our heroine asked in surprise what he meant. The young man replied that this was a sign among mercenaries. If you swear when faced with something like this, it will pay off. The girl was touched by this, because if you catch a child passing by and ask him to say a few kind words, then he will cope with it better. She didn't think Ruby could swear either. Did he really say this to dispel her bad mood? Then she said that she should listen carefully and learn. After which she began to shout curses, starting from the stupid creature and ending with the fact that he cuts his finger on the paper every time he touches it. Suddenly, the shocked voice of Sir Hilton was heard from behind, who asked where she had learned such words. Is it really from Mr. Russell? High society is a battlefield where aristocrats wear luxurious clothes as armor and use their tongues like the tip of a sword. In appearance, everything shines. But in reality, in this war, everyone has their own battle. Therefore, when a weapon is pointed at you, you will have to defend yourself. Suddenly, the voice of a knight was heard, who said that the ability to defend oneself carries extreme moisture, especially if the place is like a battlefield. But still, swearing is not quite the same. The girl exclaimed that there would be no more. Then she was simply forced by circumstances. Meanwhile, the emperor said that the day when the two countries were able to achieve friendly relations in the name of peace and the opportunity to celebrate the prince's birthday together was a wonderful reason for celebration. Today's banquet has been prepared to share this joyful moment with everyone, and he hopes that the guests will have a lot of fun and enjoy their time. May the light of the great sun be with them. After this, the man told Aidan to come forward so that he could congratulate him on his 16th birthday. The emperor handed him a sword called Gloria, and the young man replied that he appreciated it very much. Those present immediately whispered that His Highness had given the prince a weapon. Does he really encourage his strength? Our heroine noted to herself that it was not surprising that such a reaction appeared. Gloria is a sword that was given to the commander-in-chief during war. It symbolizes the authority of command of knights, with the exception of the emperor's personal guard. However, it also shows that war is inevitable. Plus, it was with the help of this sword that the elder brother put an end to this story. Then Sheena decided that there was no point in thinking about it now, since there was still time. The emperor, meanwhile, said that in this case, from now on he declares the banquet open. Our heroine saw that the prince was alone, so there was an opportunity to give him a gift and at the same time talk about something. But before she had time to say a word, the queen appeared and began to congratulate His Highness the Prince. The woman said that she had prepared a gift in honor of his birthday. Would he accept it? The young man replied that he had already received enough of everything. Rebecca said that this is just a small gesture. Does it look like a gift in honor of such a holiday? For the sake of the prince, she asked the greatest hand-painting master to do this. The guy thanked her and said that he would use it carefully. The queen objected that you could make as many of these things as you like, so let them use it for their health. If the empress were alive, he would be more happy, but even if he can't show it, how much emptiness has penetrated into him. Tomorrow she will leave this place, but her soul will always be close to him. She has the desire and greed to fill this emptiness with material things, just so that he doesn't feel lonely. Everyone around immediately began to lament that she was incredibly caring. Our heroine thought to herself that despite the fact that today was the last day of the delegation's arrival, she dared to act so openly in an official setting. Sheena immediately hugged her brother and said that he couldn't be lonely because he had a sister in her. I thought to myself that there was nothing left but to act even more boldly. The queen replied that she had thought about it earlier, and as it turned out, the princess really treasured the prince very much. When our heroine replied that they were family, the woman said that, in that case, she would be the first to decline and wished them a wonderful time. The girl thought to herself that, contrary to all expectations, she got rid of her quite easily. But unfortunately, the princess did not have time to think about how her older brother would react to all this and what to do about it. Sheena thought to herself that if Aiden was already angry, then this was the perfect chance to talk to him. But again, she didn't have time to say a word when Oscar called the prince and said that he should come up for a few minutes. The princess decided that she should rest a little, and on the way she thought that it was a pity that everything had turned out this way, because she could have talked to him. He became angry with her again because of her desire to show that they were friends. But she is sure that the chance must come, because she hasn't even given him the gift yet. When Sheena entered one of the rooms, she saw the queen and said that she did not know that she was there, so she would go about her business. Let her rest. But unexpectedly, the woman replied that there was no need. The princess had arrived just in time. Rebecca really wanted to talk to her privately. Our heroine asked what she wanted to tell her. The woman replied that it seemed that the princess was very careful about the prince. Sheena exclaimed that, of course, he was her brother. The queen believes that such love makes His Highness the Prince uncomfortable. The girl noted to herself that she had checked the rumors that she and Aiden had a cold relationship. Even if it's one-sided, her goodwill most likely irritates her quite a bit. If that's the case, she'll continue. Sheena said it was because she followed him around and pestered him a lot. This is impossible, but my sister wants to spend more time with him, so she throws tantrums. The woman said that, noticing how the princess was hanging on to the prince, she remembered her sister. Like Sheena, Gione also constantly followed her around until Queen Rain sold her to this place. After our heroine flinched in surprise, the woman said that she had no intention of scaring her. She's just telling. Between brothers and sisters who take the place of a monarch, the word family is something overrated. There is nothing left but to first become rivals and then ordinary objects. This is the same as playing family, which has a limited time. But isn't Rebecca different? Unlike the princess, she is a real family for the prince, because she does not need to fight for the place of the monarch. It was very annoying, but our heroine could not deny it, because many dynasties have done this since ancient times. However, does she have the right to talk about a real family like that? It was she who intended to plunge a knife into Aiden's back and now sits there, talking to her about such things. Shameless. Sheena replied that there was no need to worry. She doesn't think of family as a limited-time game. If one day this happens, it will only be at the end of her life. The girl has already rested enough, so she will go first. She hopes that Her Highness will rest in comfort. Bleeth Albans is the Earl of the prestigious Albans family. He is a key figure in the center of the nobility and is an important and respected figure to everyone. He was always the object of envy for the lifestyle that everyone praised. If it weren't for the prince, because of whom everything went downhill, everyone around was whispering that he had problems with His Majesty. They say that the count fled like a wild animal struck by an arrow. The man thought that the humiliation he experienced that day was too great, but still, he succumbed. The man said that they had prepared another gift for His Highness's birthday. The boy standing next to him introduced himself as Dias Albans. The young man replied that he refused to accept this gift. He doesn't need the hands of a young and clumsy man. Bleeth did not understand how he could behave this way, despite the merits of his ancestors. The man shouted at his son and said that he had shown himself to be a pathetic and trembling fool. Wasn't that why they were refused? His father doesn't want to see him. Let him go away. He thought there was a chance because the Empress was the Princess of the Rhine. If you place a suitable person next to the monarch, the status of their family will rise even higher. The man believed in it and stood in line, But who knew that this rope would break so abruptly? If only the Empress were alive, then everything would be different. Then the Count saw the princess walking along the corridor and quickly hid, as he was very uncomfortable being next to her, since she had some strange expression on her face, and apparently something had happened. The man decided to go see what was wrong in the room from which she came out. When he saw the Queen, the Count exclaimed that it was a great honor for him to meet her. He is the head of the Earl's family of Albans, and his name is Bleeth. When the woman said that she was aware that he was a supporter of Gione, the man exclaimed that she really knew him. Rebecca said she heard that he gave her sister a lot of strength. The Count replied that he only followed the will of the Empress, whom he respected. The Queen replied that it was a great relief that such a devoted person as he was by Gione's side, or rather by Her Majesty the Empress. Unfortunately, she couldn't, and that's probably why her sister hated her heartless relative until the very end. Blith exclaimed that he believed that the Empress understood her perfectly. The woman thanked him for such words and said that, unfortunately, even her nephew was embarrassed. If you try to shorten the distance, obstacles appear. Suddenly, the Count remembered the princess who came out of this room with a very serious face and asked if something had happened. The Queen replied that it was nothing special. She just cares about her brother so much that she even said that she doesn't need to worry about him. Apparently, the girl does not want them to get close to him. Due to her young age, Sheena wants to solely own her brother's love. The man was indignant and shouted that this was too ignorant. I thought to myself, what kind of feelings of affection are these? She must now be holding back the prince's powers and influence. Then he said that the prince and princess had not maintained friendly relations for a long time. It's interesting with what joy she has now decided to play with the family and wants to solely own his love. Apparently, this is just an excuse to keep her at a distance. Rebecca thanked him and said that she would return back with peace of mind, knowing that Aidan had a supporter like him by his side. Let him take care of the young man for her. The man replied that she should not be too upset, because he would come up with something. Meanwhile, our heroine drank glass after glass and thought about what the Queen had just told her. What other family game for a limited time? She is under enormous stress and cannot get rid of it. Plus, she still can't see Ruby for the whole day. Suddenly, Halsey Lauren approached the girl and greeted her. The princess replied that they had not seen each other for a long time. While the lady was asking if everything was all right with our heroine during the time they had not seen each other, Sheena could only think that she looked so dazzling that just the sight of her calmed the soul. When the princess's silence dragged on, the girl asked if she was distracting her. Sheena immediately replied that she was simply speechless for a couple of seconds from her beautiful appearance. And she always had time for Halsey. Then the princess began to turn her head in different directions and ask whether Lady Lauren was alone at the celebration. And where were everyone else? The girl replied that Her Highness seemed very busy, so she was the only one who volunteered to greet her. Our heroine noted to herself that they had been watching her terrible behavior from afar all this time. She said out loud that if everything was fine, then she would like to talk to them. Halsey replied that it was a great honor for them. The girl asked what she gave as a gift to her brother. Sheena replied that she prepared scented candles that help calm and relieve fatigue, but she still hasn't been able to give them away, so she's worried because he already has so many wonderful gifts. Halsey told her not to say that, because Her Highness put her soul into this gift, so the prince will certainly like it. The other girl said that, of course, the princess's gift would please the boys, but there was a problem with them. They have never chosen gifts for men, so they are not sure whether he liked it, since they do not know at all what His Highness is interested in and what he likes. Our heroine thought to herself that Aidan was annoyed by absolutely any gift, but at such a moment a white lie was necessary. That's why she said that her brother simply doesn't show it, but she thinks that he was definitely happy. The girls objected that just by looking at Her Highness the Queen's gift, one could tell that he was not delighted. If he doesn't like such magnificent gifts, then what about them? Valentina stated that she had heard that Her Highness, the Queen, and His Highness the Prince were related by blood, but it did not appear that they were close. Our heroine thought to herself that it was all thanks to her, and she prevented their rapprochement, but she could not say this out loud. Therefore, she said out loud that the reason was that too little time had passed since they met each other. They may still be embarrassed. Suddenly, Blith intervened in the conversation, who said that didn't the princess interfere with the improvement of their relationship? He saw all her disrespectful actions towards Queen Rain. The man then shouted loudly that wasn't she the one who said that Her Highness Rebecca had no right to worry about the prince. The Count cannot even imagine why she said such words. Let me explain it to everyone right here and now. The heroine looked at him and thought that he had really lost his mind. No matter how much he supported her brother, showing such disrespect to the imperial family was too much. Sheena never said that she had no rights to this. But how did he know about all this? The girl could not understand. Noticing that Sir Hilton was already ready to go deal with this impudent person, the girl asked him not to interfere, after which she came close to Count Albans and said that with what joy, having been completely convinced of her guilt, he was waiting for some kind of justification. Then she looked up and saw that the Emperor and Empress were absent, so the courage of this man became clear. Still, he still can't do this to her. When Bleeth asked if she confirmed her guilt, Sheena replied that even if this were true, then is he in a position to reproach her? How can the Count even dare talk to her like that? The man shouted that she didn't think he realized that Sheena was using her status to hide her misdeeds. The princess showed disrespect to a foreign guest, namely Her Highness Queen Rhine. She must have thought that in this place, no one would be able to point out her ignorance. Was she really so afraid of the prince's growing influence that she stooped to such a degree? Our heroine thought to herself that no. Helping Aiden, preventing Rebecca's tyranny, it was all to protect him. However, who would believe this? Most likely, everyone thinks like the Count. Perhaps the older brother thinks so too. Suddenly, a young man appeared in the room and asked why there was such a noise, and let the princess explain everything. After a long silence, the young man called Oscar, who told him in his ear everything that had happened. After listening to this, His Highness said that this simply crossed all boundaries, and that one should not do this. The man immediately jumped in and said, "How dare she even say that?" Bleeth tried to find out from her the reason for such an act, but unexpectedly the young man asked how long the Count was going to cross all the boundaries of what was permitted. Stuttering, the man tried to say that he did it all for his sake, but the young man replied that it was still necessary to show him how to silence a barking dog. Listening to his constant nonsense is a real torment. So if he has already finished talking nonsense, then the young man will move on with his business. Everyone present immediately began to whisper that this was a terrible shame. They knew that he was arrogant in everyday life, but how dare the Count raise his voice to the princess? Rumor has it that he has problems with the prince, and apparently this is really true. But our heroine could not believe that her older brother stood up for her. Therefore, I decided to call him to present him with a gift. But the young man looked at her coldly again and told her not to make a fuss anymore. Sheena wondered if he hadn't opened his heart to her. It seems that this was not help, but simply fears that the banquet would be disrupted. The girl had absolutely no idea what Aiden was thinking about. The next day, Queen Rhine said goodbye and thanked her for her hospitality. The Emperor replied that this was a matter of course, and he hoped that she had a good rest. Rebecca then turned to His Highness the Prince and said that she very much hoped that they would meet again soon. Our heroine noted to herself that this woman was not going to calm down until the last moment. Let him leave as soon as possible. But suddenly she turned to her too, after which she shook her hand and said that thanks to Sheena, she enjoyed her stay in this palace. Then she hugged her close and said that she really hoped that everything would come true exactly as she said. Pushing him away from her, the girl told her not to worry because, of course, this would happen. Then the queen went home, and our heroine thought that even though she said so, would everything be all right? After a while, Joey said that there was still time before training, and she was already getting ready to leave somewhere. Sheena replied that there was talk of roses blooming in the central garden, so she was going to go look at them. The woman replied that they were really beautiful, so have a nice walk. The girl walked through the garden and admired its incredible beauty. The color red always lifted her spirits. The strawberries that decorate the top of the cake like a precious stone, or the blush on the mother's cheeks like those of young girls, or her favorite camellia flower, which blooms only in winter. Also Ruby, who looked like him. This all made her happy. Suddenly, a picture appeared in her head of how her older brother was killing her parents, and the Emperor was shouting for his daughter to run away as quickly as possible. But the girl did not have time to do this, and Aiden swung his bloody sword at her, after which a fragment appeared of how, as a child, her younger brother left her, and the girl screamed for him to wait, because she wanted to explain everything to him. When our heroine woke up in a cold sweat, she noted that lately she had been having the same nightmare. Perhaps it was because she was constantly anxious, or because there had been no progress for several months since the Rhine Kingdom delegation had returned. This dream was like hell, in which everything ends with Aiden's hand. At this rate, it will become a reality, because the present in which the brother lives is no different from him. The girl hopes that he will become happy and satisfied with his life. When one is happy and the other is unhappy, it is not fair. Perhaps this is the will of fate, to make each other unhappy. The next day, the Emperor said that he was busy, so he could not give her the reward. If there is something she wants, then let her say it. Sheena didn't understand what else the reward was. The Empress explained that since she had done an excellent job preparing for the banquet in honor of receiving the rain delegation, this was payment for her efforts. The girl noted that she had already come for several months, so everything was fine. I thought to myself that, on top of everything, there was a farce during the celebration. Therefore, she cannot call him praiseworthy at all. Count Albans also paid before the Emperor for his imprudence and long tongue. Her father said that she really did a great job on her first assignment. Mother supported and added that she tried very hard. The girl thought to herself that, on the contrary, the one who deserves praise the most is her brother. Therefore, she asked out loud that she shouldn't give it to Aiden. Like banquets or receptions, there is nothing where the elder brother does not put his hand. She also heard that no matter how busy he is with his work, he still goes to fencing practice. My brother even carries a commander's book with him. If he leads the army, he will definitely win a great victory. Therefore, she wants to say that it will be better if the Emperor establishes the permanent status of his brother until the end of the year and makes him his successor. The man suddenly became gloomy and asked if her older brother had really told her something. Our heroine noted that she had already seen such a reaction. This was in childhood, when she still did not understand anything and said that she did not want to become an heiress. The father shifted all responsibility for this onto Aiden, after which Sheena never raised this topic again, as it seemed to her that her brother might get hurt again. But this couldn't go on any longer, stop retreating. So she shouted that this was her reasoning. The person who deserves the highest position is her brother. When our heroine again repeated that she did not want to become an empress, her father interrupted her and said that was enough. This place is naturally hers. Let her not say such things again. After these words, our heroine silently ran out of the dining room. The Emperor said that let her be alone. She needs it at the moment. Sheena didn't understand what to do now. Was a really happy ending for everyone just her carefree dream? Perhaps there will come a time when you just have to make a choice, and perhaps let Aiden go. But this is the same as a temporary game of family. How will she then be better than that woman? In this case, it is really better to just die. Suddenly, she heard Ruby's voice behind her. The young man said that the training was still far away, but it had already arrived. Sheena exclaimed that she wanted to ask something. Just let him answer honestly. Will he be able to carry out the ruler's order, despite what is specifically required of him? The guy answered yes. Then our heroine asked what if he was ordered to cut her with a sword? Will he be able to carry out this order? Russell replied that according to the oath, knights could not harm members of the imperial family. The girl objected that if the ruler orders, shouldn't he obey? The young man replied that he always wanted to stay near her as long as she allowed it. Sheena said she has no intention of stopping as empress. She won't even be able to give the title of imperial sword to the knights that everyone dreams of. Therefore, he thinks that he will not leave them around. The girl does not want to become a ruler who could bring problems to others. Rubus asked what in that case. Could he at least remain a servant of Her Majesty? Although he has not tried to do anything other than fencing, he will somehow learn, or at least become a groom. The girl objected that she had no power, and she said that she could not give him the title. The guy replied that he understood everything. The guy understands that this is too arrogant on his part, but still he would like to dare to want to help her. Sheena asked if he meant that no matter if she becomes empress, he still wants to be by her side. Rubus replied that it was exactly like that. The girl noted to herself that this had changed. It turns out there is what she managed to do. This is direct proof that the future has changed, and it is standing right in front of her. Russell began to say that he dared to show greed, and did not even think of burdening Her Highness. But the girl did not let him finish, and silently rushed to hug him. After which she said that this did not burden her at all. She was just very glad that he chose her. The young man asked if this meant that she would give him a chance to become Her Highness's sword. Our heroine replied that he was not a sword at all, but her man. Now it will always be like this. As a mentor or as a friend, it is enough that he will always be by her side. A few days later, Sheena carried a gift to the water spirits. Wear a waterproof ribbon, and Selleck a new hat. She really hoped they would like it. The girl originally prepared the cookies to spend time with Ruby after training, but he's gone now. At the moment, all the knights of the imperial family have work, because the conflict on the border has begun to escalate again. Most of the apprentice knights were also deployed to fill out the headquarters, and Russell is also included in this number. Our heroine had the feeling that several months had already passed, but in fact, not even a few days had passed. Suddenly, someone called Sheena. It was Hugh, who said that he was just on his way to meet her, so it was great luck to see her now. Sheena didn't understand why he wanted to see her. The man said it was finally over. The doctor then solemnly handed her a bottle of energy-boosting medicine. The girl asked if she could drink it at all, or if she took it, she could immediately throw off her hooves. The man replied that it doesn't look very good, but the ingredients that are included in the composition are very useful for the body, and he is confident in their effectiveness. However, if she refuses, then nothing can be done. Sheena immediately snatched the medicine from his hands and said that it was so delicious, so she would definitely drink it. After which our heroine began to drink it in large sips, and the doctor shouted that there was no need to do it so quickly. When Sheena drank to the bottom and said that this water was very tasty, the man said that Her Highness was also capable of this. Reading the silent question in her eyes, Hugh said that he had known about this ever since she visited him. Nana told him everything. Let the princess not worry, since he did not tell anyone about this. But if this question still worries her, then she can call a magician who will help erase her memories.